Alright, should be a video. So the usual routine, I will prepare for this event of interacting with people and such. Look at that, that worked. Amazing. Ooh, surprise. I didn't have to fiddle with it. Alright, so on with the show, as they say. Do I need this? No, I don't need that. Okay. So we'll go over here somewhere. I guess this will do. So the Cyan Gosling guy, Ian, whatever, has done 3 videos, all attempting to prove there's no conservation of momentum. And, well, he doesn't get around to figuring that out, but, I mean, that's what he's doing. And this is all in the context of a lot of people have complained, like, how could science be wrong all these years? How could they make these mistakes? How could this possibly happen? And you're saying, well, this is exactly how it could happen. It's not a conspiracy of anything but people being stupid and arrogant. Ignorant and arrogant, obnoxious and arrogant, belligerently stupid. I mean, however you want to describe it. And they're just truth molesters, and they have so little. They're doing their Dunning-Kruger thing so perfectly. That they have. They're not appreciating at all that. Gee, you're videotaping basically yourself molesting science. I mean, just cheating it in this grotesque manner. So what's your legacy going to be? I mean, this is who you are, now. You're just a science molester, a fact molester, a truth molester. But fine, whatever. Obviously, this doesn't bother these people any. They're so arrogant. It's just amazing. I mean, I point out to them, this is what you're doing. You're saying there's no conservation of momentum. That's the implications of your argument. And you're doing it with a piece of evidence that basically proves absolutely nothing because it doesn't prove kinetic energy. So you're attempting to destroy momentum as a concept, and you're doing it with evidence that doesn't prove kinetic energy. So it's... What, you really think the real truth is something different? There's some new thing we have to consider? Some new magical bent space or something? What's going to be your explanation? I mean, they're just so stupid. It's just, Alright, so I don't know. Do I really need to draw anything? I guess what I need to do is context. So, I mean, I already played the guy's video, right? So this... Perth guy, Perth, I think it was, Perth G, yeah, so he did a video. I played the video, okay, I play theirs. I played the video. He points out clearly the discrepancy that exists, and it basically is the same discrepancy that exists between the idea of momentum being conserved in experiments. So momentum's a real thing. Physics really does use momentum. NASA uses it a lot. So it's not a broken concept. It does get right answers a lot. And then you have this 1/2, v squared thing that they just turned into 1/2 kx squared. They're just calling the x the v, basically. And you could replace the k with a g or some other kind of thing. So it's just the same idea that somehow there's this kinetic energy thing, whatever that would be. And the two aren't compatible. So I played this video, and yet they just don't pay any attention. So it's like they're here they are molesting the science and attempting to say they're countering some argument I'm making, and they're nowhere even close to the argument I'm making. So I'll play this again.
When we use the forces method. So what gives? What should the compression of the spring actually...
Alright, so we'll go back a little tiny bit further just so you hear him say, hey, what gives? There are 2 different answers. That doesn't make any sense. How can we have 2 different answers to the same question?
The compression of the spring must be 2 multiplied by mg divided by k. So this is twice the value that we found when we used the forces method.
Okay, so there you go. He's just saying the forces method is just establishing what did the wooden block give away as energy, and then all of a sudden, if they try to figure out what did the spring receive as energy, the two numbers don't match. And they're exactly, you know, if you have the mass to do this and do that, you can double it, you can quadruple it, you can zadzuple the error, okay, between the two numbers. The two numbers diverge dramatically, okay, as you increase the speed, the velocity in the question.
So what gives? What should the compression of the spring actually be? Should it be mg over k, or should it be 2mg over k? Or should it be something else entirely? This is something that I want to call affectionately the spring paradox, because it gives two different answers using supposedly fairly logical arguments, right? And just to clarify, both of these are meant to be exactly the same situation. We're calculating the compression of the spring when we place some block with mass m on top of an ideal spring. So then why, using two different methods, are we arriving at two different answers? Shouldn't they be exactly the same? Well, yes, they should. So, have we broken physics? Is this the final nail in the coffin of an already dying subject?
Okay, so I mean, I'm not going to go through it all, but I mean, obviously, this does, yes, it just proves the physics is broken in these dramatic, foundational ways where there's a huge pile of illogic and nonsense right at the origin, right at the foundation, that all the bricks of the foundation are crap. Okay, and yes, this Tower of Babel will fall because it's founded on crap. I mean, you know, that's the obvious, simple conclusion. All right. So, I mean, I played this in the videos. This is already an acknowledged fact. So all we're really arguing is still mv versus 1/2 mv squared, and which one of these things is a credible way to define energy. All right, and the argument is in 350 years they have nothing as experimental evidence to demonstrate 1/2 mv squared. Nothing. No experimental evidence showing us kinetic energy doing more work, any of these numbers meaning anything. They've never showed a bullet knocking 2,000 times more atoms, displacing 2,000 times more atoms in space than the gun recoil. They've never shown it taking 4 times more fuel to go twice as fast, or 9 times more fuel to go 3 times as fast. They've never shown any of this crap to be true. And here they are proselytizing and pushing and shoving, okay, aggressively calling other people all kinds of names because they dare to say, show me something that means something. And then they contrive these disgustingly crude fucking experiments and say, see, isn't that proof enough? Didn't I just prove there's no conservation of energy with my wooden stick with a bunch of holes drilled in it? Oh, it's disgusting. Alright, so on to this crap. Okay, so the first of these new 3 videos by this moron, he's reading from some archaic engineer manual or something, and it has really nothing to do with the subject. I mean, frankly, I mean, he's not analyzing a real system, so I'll draw that and show that again in a video. Angular momentum is no different than regular momentum. You're just talking about masses having to move velocities. And if you add up all the little MVs in a wheel, right, inside the wheel, each little piece of the mass is moving at a different speed. The stuff near the hub is moving slow, the stuff on the outside is moving fast. And all you do is calculate where all the little dots of matter are, the mass, and you just figure out from what position they're in, how fast they have to go for the wheel to turn, and then you add it all up, and that's the angular momentum. It's not some magical thing. And again, they're just competing with the momentum theory by saying, no, it's not momentum, it's kinetic energy, so the stuff going faster has 4 times the energy, blah, 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 blah. So they're again making up a fake number. They won't show this in reality. It's just bullshit. All right.
Gary, you were inquiring as to the existence of a formula for
I wanted you to apply a formula, okay? I wanted you to take the formula and show that your stupid experiment proves something. And the fact is, if you take both of the formulas and apply them to your experiment, neither thing is conserved. You don't conserve the kinetic energy and you don't conserve the momentum. You are doing a Brozosian experiment, okay? You're saying, here's my answer, 14. Okay, the predictions are 12 and 16. Isn't it a great experiment? Didn't I just prove something? I think you proved you can't do an experiment worth shit. I think that's what you're proving, and that's my accusation, that you're doing a shitty, well, unthoughtful, stupid experiment poorly, and then claiming you're going to disprove a fundamental law in physics that's as old as levers.
rotational inertia. So I've got you this from the...
So inertia, he keeps saying it. I've pointed out how it's not a concept. He hasn't explained what it is, this thing called inertia, how it ever shows itself in reality, and especially in things like space, where there's no evidence of inertia. The space shuttle's going by me in space. I reach my arm out and poke the space shuttle. What's going to happen? My energy, I'm going to get half of the experience is going to push me, and half the energy is going to push the space shuttle. Neither one of us is going to resist anything called motion. We're both going to be moved. So there is no such thing as anything called inertia. A piece of dust can hit a flying spaceship, and frankly, if it's got warp drive, the piece of dust can bore a hole in it and blow it up. These are just facts, okay? There's no inertia. There's nothing stopping things from interacting, from connecting to each other, and through that connection process share their differences with each other. The only thing inertia is describing is contact, and the fact is, in space, the contact is completely pure, and on Earth, it's corrupted by what's called friction. That is, the contact ends up being more contact. So where your contact would have just been, my little fingers are touching, friction forces the contact to be more substantial, and therefore you have some idea that you have to break the friction before you can get something to go somewhere. You have to add a little extra energy to break the consequences of friction. And that's the only concept or the only place in which this idea of any resistance to motion exists. There is no resistance to motion. If I take away all the goddamn fucking friction from a goddamn fucking experiment, there'll be no fucking inertia. No resistance to change. Shit.
A book called The Theory of Machines.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. That makes... that's... I'm sure. Okay, written by... yeah. Did he win a Nobel Prize?
By Thomas Bevan.
Oh, okay.
Under the
Very
more
exciting.
general classification of classical mechanics, it's a little bit more specialised.
So this is how he's going to prove that it's 1/2 mv squared, and that levers don't conserve momentum, and that somehow... I'll just show what he's going to prove again. Okay, so it's just... I mean, damn. This is just this is so fucking irritating to have to go over this and over this with these lying sacks of shit. All right, now there's some things that I can't, they won't even say what they actually believe in. So the mindless marvels, all these people are too cowardly to answer my questions. Do they believe in conservation of momentum? Do they accept the fact that, frankly, I did it on my porch, so I know it works. All right, that you could actually hang, 4 objects from 1/4 the distance, okay, on a lever, a balance, and you don't have holes in it, you don't have any bullshit in it, okay? The lever has got the same amount of wood on this side, same amount of this side, blah, blah, blah. You're just measuring, comparing these 2 objects, and these 2 objects have exactly the same weight in gravity. Because essentially what they're going to basically do is they're going to move a velocity, okay, and they have a mass. And they're going to have an mv. And this one's mv because this is going to be its v. And the v over here is going to be this little line here, okay, 1 to 4 difference in their mv. So when they oscillate, move, and this will oscillate. It'll just oscillate, go back and forth, and eventually, depending on how perfect this fulcrum is, can do it for a very long time. Because this is always the same weight. This is always the same weight. If this weighed 10 pounds, this out here weighs 10 pounds. That's the way it works out. So even though its mass is only 1/4 of that, 2.5 pounds, it weighs the 10 pounds. The two things end up weighing the same, applying the same pressure across this stick. Those are all facts. Okay, and the fact is when I do oscillate this thing, their theory, the one they're defending, okay, momentum says everything's just fine. This has the same momentum as this in the motion. Everything works just fine. It makes perfect sense. Okay, if you get hit by this stick going up, the pressure will be exactly the same as when you get hit by this stick going up. Same thing, same energy, oscillating on both sides. That's what momentum says, and it's perfectly consistent with what the experiment looks like. No, their accusation is that this is 400 joules of energy over here, and this is only 100 joules of energy over here. That's their accusation. They're overtly telling you that that's the truth. That if this part of the stick hits you, this mass, let's just eliminate the stick and just say the mass just gets released. We have a quick release, and this thing just disconnects, and you're going to get hit by this object. They say this object has 100 joules, and they say this object has 400 joules. They would, if they were going to get punched in the face place, they would make the deal to get hit by 3 of these and think they're getting a bargain, 3 to 1. Because they're so afraid of this monster here, this horrible big giant monster. I can make this differential even bigger. I can make it 100 to 800. I can make it 100 to 1,000. I can do what the gun does, and I can have 2 joules on one side of the gun and 2,000 joules on the other side of a simple explosion. A simple explosion happens, I end up with 2 joules going one way, 2,000 joules of energy going the other way. Momentum says, no, it's 2 and 2. Momentum says it makes perfect sense. I've done these examples before. Do they really think if I put a gun inside of a gun? Okay, I make a gun a little narrower than the other gun, and I put one explosion between the two, and I fire the 2 guns away from each other. I'm going to get 4 joules of energy out of the experiment. And if I put 2 bullets, right? If I make another kind of gun, I just put 2 bullets and shoot those with the explosion, I'm going to get 4,000 joules of energy out of the same explosion. Does this make sense to anybody? Can they explain why this isn't true, why this doesn't actually happen? Will they deal with this argument ever? Will they point out in some way how I'm breaking logic and violating facts and making up an insane gremlin story that there's a 3 bear in here, or a fucking blind mice, or a talking fish? Where's the talking fish in this factual statement about what the science says? 4 joules versus 4,000. Same explosion, same piece of explosive. 4,000 joules, 4 joules. How is this conservation of energy? Where did all the fucking energy go? What is your frickin' arguments? Have they made any? No. This is just disgusting. It's the way it is. So anyway, all the people think, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. I don't need to have a conspiracy, right? It's not a conspiracy. The conspiracy is we're belligerent, arrogant, stupid motherfuckers. We're proud of our human race. We're proud to be human lying sacks of molesting shit. And that's all they're doing here. They won't deal with a single one of the fucking arguments, and they just keep praising Jesus and keep telling everybody else you're an atheist, you're evil, you're stupid because you don't believe in our fable. So he's just reading out of the Bible now. So one of the bishops has written an interpretation of the Bible, and they're going to tell us what the truth is, not going to show us what the truth is.
Relates more to the design and operation of machines. A thing called the mass moment of inertia. A couple. So far as linear motion is concerned, the mass of a rigid body may be concentrated at a point. The point is known as the centre of mass, or more usually, the centre of gravity.
So, yes, so the object can move linearly. I don't know why it's comparing both things at the same time, but anyway, it's in the paragraph. So you have an object. The idea is that from different angles, you could argue it has a center of mass. So in my opinion, the center of mass actually is a one-dimensional thing, and it's in different places for the different dimensions, this way and this way versus this way and this way. But regardless, and the idea is that you can hit the thing in that center of mass, or you can hit something off the center of mass. So you could add rotational energy, or you could just add linear energy. But the fact is, the energy you add is the same amount. So if this mass velocity, okay, of the churning creates a velocity in the object, and all of that has to be accounted for as real energy, besides just the whole thing moving in this direction. Spinning has to come from somewhere. If you're going to spin an object, it has to spin because something provides the energy. And in the case of gravity for orbits, gravity provides the turning energy. And for a runner going around a track, he has to provide the energy, or a car going around a curve. The car has to slow down to do the curve because there is no gravity, okay, producing the change in the direction. He has to do it. He has to use his energy to turn.
But although the centre of gravity may be fixed so that there is no motion or translation of the body as a whole, it is still possible for the body to rotate about an axis which passes through the fixed centre of gravity.
Duh. So it's just basically saying things can rotate. They don't do it very well here on Earth, obviously, without something holding them up and doing all that stuff and create friction, which is going to take the energy, blah, 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 blah.
Again, it is a matter of experience.
So that's the key word, isn't it? Yeah, whose experience? Not my experience, frankly.
That the body resists any attempt to change its angular velocity.
So I would argue this is just absolute nonsense. It's like saying, what's the resistance made out of? The fact that you actually have to give it energy. Yes, a wheel, I can put a wheel in front of you, okay, just pretend it's a wheel, and the wheel doesn't spin. Is it resisting spinning? No, it's just nothing's caused it to spin, but anything hits it. Like I said, a grain of dust. I can put a wheel up in space and a grain of dust can hit this pen, okay, and it will start to rotate because it will take the energy from the grain of dust hitting it, okay, and absorb it and turn it into its motion. And it will not resist it. It will just incorporate it into something that only had 5 atoms into something that has 500 atoms. Yes, it spreads over the same piece of bread. You have a little bit of butter, you're going to spread it over different sizes pieces of bread, you're going to get a thicker or thinner coat of butter. So it's not going to go as fast, but it didn't resist absorbing the energy, it didn't resist moving. It will, in fact, move. So it's a silly notion. It's not my experience that bodies resist movement. They do not resist movement. Now, yes, if it's a 10-ton weight being pushed with gravity into the ground, okay, and it's a 10 tons of mass, the mass now has a velocity into the earth, okay, then yes, I'm going to need extra energy to get it moving. It's not going to resist motion. But the fact that it's stuck in a dent in the ground means I have to push it out of that deficit. Yes, that'll take extra energy. But the weight isn't resisting. The circumstance is creating the resistance. There is no inertia in the object saying I will not move. And if it was in space, I could move it by just flicking my fingers. I could just do this and cause the 10-pound weight to move. Slowly, but it would move.
Omega, about the axis. I'll repeat that again.
So he's going to read these sentences over and over again as if this is somehow compelling evidence that I must believe that things resist moving even though it's not my experience. I throw the bowling ball at the pins do not resist accepting the energy from the bowling ball. They do goddamn move. Just a fact. I can't think of a single place where things are doing this actual thing where they're resisting moving. It's just crap as an idea.
It is a matter of experience.
Yes, not my experience, okay? Maybe it's your experience, but I have never seen this thing you're saying exist happen in the real world. There's no evidence when I make a nice, well-constructed lever that it resists me putting energy into it, changing the balance. Theoretically, I could drop a grain of dust onto the lever and cause motion.
That the body resists any attempt to
Any attempt. I mean, it's just, you think this is a little bit hyperbolic and retarded? It resists any attempt? So I could plow a speeding bullet into it and it's going to resist the motion?
change its angular velocity, omega, about the axis.
So, isn't that just so stupid? Any attempt to cause the wheel to spin. So any attempt, it's no point. Don't bother making cars because they can't work. Because you can't make the wheels turn. Any attempt will fail.
It is the angular inertia, or the mass moment of inertia.
Yes, it's momentum of the masses. It's the velocity of the masses. That's all there is. So this little baby talk here, the moment of inertia, the angular inertia, these are all just garbage words. They don't mean anything in the real conversation. The real formulas don't have these stupid concepts in them. It doesn't mean anything. It's rubbish.
Of the body, which determines the resistance to a given rate of change of the angular velocity.
Right. So first off, we're just talking about velocities, because we're trying to get rid of the whole angular thing. We're not trying to turn things. Okay, so the whole point of having things dangle is that they don't turn. The other point is to, create your lever and keep things on this plane. As I've pointed out, when you're going up and down, you're fighting pretty clearly just fighting gravity. When you're going side to side, gravity isn't in the equation anymore in terms of the force it takes to move something sideways, except for the friction created on the bearing. So other than that, there is none. All right, there is no resistance because you're not fighting gravity anymore. So when you're going across the top of the circle, you're going sideways. When you're going on the side of the circle, you're going up and down. And so the idea is we're trying to do the up and down test. We're trying to keep it in a consistent force against its motion, not an inconsistent force. And clearly it becomes a very inconsistent force when you're moving a tiny bit up and a lot sideways versus moving a lot up and just a tiny bit sideways. But again, another argument they will never address.
It is the angular inertia, or the mass moment of inertia of the body, which determines the resistance to a given rate of change of the angular velocity. In order to cause the angular acceleration, a couple must be applied.
So he never explains what a couple is. It's in italics. So we have no context to know what he means by a couple must be applied. Obviously it means a force must be applied. Okay, and so the force would be coupling with some other object that has force, I suppose, from an engineer's point of view. Or from a person using mechanical systems, he knows that, it's not messing with forces much, in the sense of stuff moving the speed of light, little forces, light or something. He's dealing with things banging into things, material objects connected to material objects, gears pushing on each other, for example.
And that's not referring to a man and a woman.
As you would know
A
anything
body
about
of
that.
mass m, when rotating, behaves as if all its mass were concentrated in a ring at a distance k.
So again, this is just the argument. You can have something that's made out of a very inconsistent material. It has light stuff, heavy stuff, light stuff, all kinds of mixtures of marble or something. of different materials. And the bottom line is that you add up the entire mass of the object, and then you can appreciate, you can place it at a place in the object where this is the average velocity of the average mass. So first you figure out what the average mass is, and then you can figure out what its average velocity has to be in terms of rotating, and establish a theory where you could essentially say, if you put 9 pounds this far from the fulcrum, moving 20 miles an hour, you will duplicate the exact conditions of some other wheel that's a mixture. But that math is really complex. But who cares? It really doesn't have anything to do with the elemental argument. Is just about what formula you're going to use. So it's just an argument about whether momentum works or whether mv squared works. So he hasn't changed the argument at all, hasn't shown how this guy tells you which formula you're supposed to be using. None of that's in here.
From the axis of rotation. The radius k is known as the radius of gyration of the body. And the product mk squared is known as the mass moment of inertia.
And it doesn't mean anything, because as the other guy, the Perth guy pointed out, you can just as validly just go mk. You can do from the force perspective, analyze the circumstance, and it's just as legitimate in physics to do so. So again, you haven't resolved the conflict between the existence of something called momentum and the existence of something called kinetic energy, and the fact that these two things are not compatible formulas. So just once again, you're just saying, well, this guy's obviously an mv squared guy. Well, does he have evidence that this mv squared thing works? Does this guy in his book have evidence that it takes 4 times the fuel to go twice as fast? Does he show any of that anywhere in his book? Any evidence that this is true? No. So he's just reading from the Bible. Jesus walked on the water. Says you.
Of the body. The symbol I will be used to denote the mass moment of inertia. mk squared, which is mass times k, which is the radius of gyration.
Right, and I could just go back to the other guy's video and just show you again, that he'll show exactly a different formula. I don't know why this stopped playing. Strange.
The answer is no.
So, okay, so the answer is no. You can't have two different answers. So he's got it in the background here somewhere, right? We saw it. I saw it. There it is in the background. So he has one formula, mg to x, and 1/2 k x squared. So, he's comparing momentum and analysis by momentum to analysis by kinetic energy, and simply saying the two are supposed to be legitimate, and yet they have different answers. And why the hell is this called physics? Because this should be called shit or mush or poo. Because it's really idiotic to have two fucking different answers to the same fucking question. And does this asshole in any way add any kind of insight to this problem? No, that's the simple truth. Nothing. He says nothing. Where the hell was he? Here it is.
Squared.
So that's it. So he thinks that's proving somehow there's no conservation of momentum, and momentum is garbage because we believe in kx squared. Yeah. All right. So absolutely nothing. There's no proof here. There's no evidence here. There's no experiment. There's no nothing. And yet he's proud of himself. So we'll do some comments. See if anybody has anything to say. Good morning. Yeah, well, I really don't do that kind of crap, but whatever. All right, so Mindless Marbles just wants to leave a question on some other video. So yeah, I wondered, Mindless Marbles, do you believe in conservation of momentum? Do you believe it's a law, or do you believe you can violate it anytime you want? Do you agree with Professor Lewin that nature can't finagle momentum? And that this guy just keeps doing experiments where he's saying, I can finagle momentum. So he's disproving Professor Lewin. He's disproving all the physicists who say you need to conserve for the momentum. You need to account for it. If you don't have the same momentum in as the same momentum out, then you have to explain where the extra momentum went. Do you understand that obligation at all? Fucking lying sack of stinking, rotten shit. Okay, and this piece of garbage, logical empiricist, who just wants to, he just can't, almost can't stop himself from trying to dox me or do something to invade my privacy. The audacity to use a book to make your arguments. So how did he make an argument except point out, look, there's an mv squared theory. Yeah, we have that theory. Do we have any evidence for it? No. Do we cherish it? Yeah. Oh, it's the most beautiful bathwater ever. Okay. Don't you know that draft science has not to consult books? Okay, so yes, I've played in my videos over 100 physics lectures. Well over 100. All right. And this Gosling guy, hasn't played any of my arguments. He hasn't addressed any of them. He hasn't played any of them. Hasn't had to deal with any of them. Nothing. Nothing. Not a single one of the arguments I make here will he address. Okay. Have you not know that he does not read books? Okay. So I'm just saying, yes, in the modern era, you don't read books. Okay. You read the internet or you listen to books because that's what technology has provided. It's really nice to be able to, even read an audio book at a faster speed because, you can save some time. Anyway, he does not need to. He either knows it already, has known it since the time he was 10 years old. Yes, some of this stuff I have, in fact, realized and seen in the world since I was 10 years old. I didn't see anything resisting moving. I didn't see, you can put a crayon on the street and it doesn't resist squishing when a car runs over it. I don't know what the bugs are resisting getting smushed by the radiator. No, the windshield. So there's no example of this, whatever this is, this resistance you claim exists. I never saw stuff resist being affected by other things crashing into it. Okay. Or you can do a Google search and disprove your assertions. I can disprove your assertions by pointing out, show me, and you don't show me anything. I mean, to me, that's the disproof. I don't have to disprove. You're claiming Jesus walks on water. I'm saying, okay, well, show me a videotape. And you won't do it. Okay. It is really that easy. It really should come down to the evidence. And what do you have as evidence? Show me. I showed you the Professor Lewin video where there's obvious defects in his assertion, in the sense that the cart that's supposed to be weighing a certain amount has big clumps of clay on it. Yes, I am sorry, I forgot, but was just trying to help as he said, matter of fact, there is no formula for rotational inertia. There's no formula defending what you're arguing in your videos. There's no formula predicting a tiny difference. It's neither momentum or kinetic energy. Yeah, there's no formula for neither one. And that's the result you got, retard. Retard. Maybe I'll call you Todd. Oh well, someone might like it. It's a lot easier than Ion. Or Ian. Yeah. Empiricist again. Okay. Argue the argument. Yes. Are they arguing the argument? So it's plainly visible, right? I've drawn a lever for 2 years, said, please explain how it works. Here's my explanation. Let me hear your explanation. You show me how the V squared thing works. Show me. For 2 years I've done this. Are they arguing any of my arguments? So I'm just saying, they're right there doing it right in the open. I mean, right in the open, they're molesting this simple truth that they haven't dealt with a single one of my fucking arguments. Nothing. The gun analogy, the spaceship analogy, the lever analogy, the pressurized hydraulic analogy. Not a single one of these subjects has been addressed by them. And yet they're pretending they are arguing the argument when they won't go anywhere near the argument. I've explained why round things dropped into clay is not a very thoughtful way of collecting energy. I've explained how the shape of round things is, right? It's very flat this way on the sides, and it's very flat this way on the bottom. Duh. Okay. As the master says. Right, and shouldn't you be doing that? So they're pretending they're somehow arguing the argument here. So he read a useless paragraph of tripe and said, there, didn't I prove that it's kinetic energy all the way? No, you didn't. Do you use books or sources not available by internet protocol to prove your points? You're supposed to be using arguments. That's what you just said, okay? You don't need books and all that crap to make an argument, frankly. You don't, you can propose that dogs shit, and then you can draw dogs shitting. You can explain it, how it's a reality, it's a fact. Okay, if you're going to say things are pooing inertia, well then you ought to show us where the inertia is exactly. Where does the inertia happen? Where, when the lever's perfectly oscillating, where's the inertia in the system? Where's all the inertia happening? This would demand a person go to a book and shop, or worse, a bookshop, a library. So again, he thinks that we need the ancient knowledge. You must go find the ancient knowledge. The experiments will be in the ancient knowledge book. Yeah, it's just too stupid. Yes, because they have all pyramid theories, I'm sure. All right, and that can't be because to spend my time in a cellar of my niece. So I don't even know what he's talking about, but that's not happening. Besides, anyway, just more of these little lies they have to come up with. Okay. Oh, and I almost forgot. Again, it's just disgusting kind of crap for people to do this. It's kind of just there's no other word for it. It's just kind of disgusting to pretend to tell stories about other people's relatives and their family. This is just so creepy that this is where they have to go to make their argument. So he's arguing the argument by bringing up where I live and who I live with. Amazing. And this is legitimate commenting in a physics video. Okay. Experiments only count when done in my present town of residency. See, what is all this? So let's talk about where I used to live. What the fuck? Why is this asshole allowed to comment on your videos when he can't stay on the fucking goddamn subject? When he does this kind of crap. If I have commenters that do this, make up stories about, oh, hey, I heard that Brozo actually got arrested 4 times. They can just make up stories, and I should leave their comments on my videos? You people are just so foul. All right, anyway. By the way, of course, I am being ironic. You're being an asshole, and that you're demonstrating that for posterity. Okay, this is a real video. I'm reading your real moronic counter argument, which is to invade my personal life to make your physics argument. Anyway, I think that's just talking to draft science is pointless. So why do you keep doing it? So here's a moron who's obsessed with, trying to destroy me in some way. He can't let go, right? He's just constantly looking for anything. He'll never counter any arguments I actually make, of course, and he'll just slander me. But, he can't let go. And he's telling other people, don't do it. You're wasting your time. Amazing. Hypocrisy, duplicity, right in the open here. And a giant waste of time. He will never admit to a mistake. Well, I'm frankly not making a mistake to understand the arguments about whether momentum is a real definition of energy, weight, pressure, or whether this, frankly, silly 1/2 mv squared thing has something to do with it. And yes, the simple argument is there's absolutely no credible evidence that this 1/2 mv squared crap has anything to do with energy in the universe. My honest advice to you would be stop trying to address draft science and ignore it. It can only do you harm. The harm is that I'll demonstrate you to be what you are, a not give a shitter about the facts and a little cult member. I mean, frankly, you're just sitting there saying, I believe in Jesus. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's not really a cult. You're just being a good Catholic. You just believe whatever they tell you. Whatever the scientist man says, I will believe it. Because the scientist man know what they're talking about. I mean, monads and solitons, shit, of course they're real. And of course, the other scientists like Newton and Descartes, who was a Jesuit, they're obvious evil atheists. Yeah. Okay, as he has done harm to so many of us. Again, and what was the harm I did? Oh, I made a video talking about what I think the truth is. That was my harm to them. And I didn't say, gee, I really love you. You're such an inspiring character. No, I really don't like you. I think you're a piece of scum. Okay, so that's the harm I did to them. I'm not allowed to tell scum, I think you're scum. Okay, if you do not take my advice, you will wake up sometime 5 years' time and recognize that you have wasted a huge amount of time trying to change the mind of a liar. So again, they won't point out my lies, an imposter and a sicko. So I'm the one playing the arguments. I'm the one trying to show you the truth. I'm the one saying, let's find the evidence. They're the ones evading every single argument made. Okay. Every single counter argument. All right. I would not do it at all. And yet he's doing it constantly. For years, he has just been a troll, okay, harassing me with his threats, okay, to do some other, make up some other lie that I have to debunk. Okay. I just make fun of drafts. No, you invade my private life. You make accusations you have no evidence are true. All right, and force me to defend myself. You're the despicably low human being. I mean, despicably disgusting shithead. You should be in jail for violating the law because you are guilty of slander and all of that crap. You're a creepy, rotten, stinking piece of shit as a human being. Because cry would be too tragic. Look at that. He wants to cry because Gary... It's all about the fact that Gary doesn't like him. If Gary liked him, then his whole story would be different. This is how psychotic human beings are. Oh, it's just so stupid. All right, mindless marbles. It is worth reminding everyone that DS denies that F equals ma. Yes, I say F equals momentum, mv. It certainly equals ma in the sense of the change in your velocity. So if you're just going to say acceleration means the change in your velocity, like 30 miles an hour, not 30 miles an hour per hour, okay? As long as you don't put that per hour thing on the acceleration, I'm fine with it. Go ahead, F equals ma. I'm fine with it, as long as you're not going to tell me that acceleration is 30 meters per second, okay, and velocity is only 30 meters per second. So somehow acceleration is per second squared and velocity is only per second. So as long as you tell me, yes, I understand that's ridiculous. Why the hell would I do that per second thing? That's cheating all over the place. I've already said it's per second. Why would I say per second? I already said it. So yes, if you take that off of acceleration, then I don't have any problem with F equals ma. But that's not what you're willing to do. So yes, when they say F equals ma, they really don't mean F equals ma. They really mean F equals ma squared. Okay. And he denies that the units of acceleration are meters second squared. There you go. Yes, I completely deny that. There's absolutely no logic to it. I do not accelerate 30 meters per second squared. I accelerate at the same rates at which I am velocity moving. If it's 30 miles an hour of force, it's 30 miles an hour of force. It's not 30 miles an hour squared. All right, trying to show him that the moment of inertia, just baby talk, rotational inertia, just baby talk again, all things have is mass and velocity. And if you're going to counter it or add to it or in some way change it, you're very free to do so. All you have to do is create the change. You can't change it by wishing it different. You have to actually apply the change to the object. That's the dramatic difference in our theories. You think it can happen just by poofing, and I think you actually have to do it. All right. Is a thing that actual equation is getting far too ahead of him, unfortunately. Yeah, well, whatever. Again, yes, this has been the argument for 2 years. The argument is for 350 years, you people have believed in your Jeebus, and nobody has really showed you any credible evidence, and you believe anyway. So you're ridiculous religious dupes. All right, when he inquires for a formula, he doesn't really care. So again, what a pile of shit. I'm pointing out to you quite clearly that the formula can't change the MV part. All you can do is shove your stupid square on it. So I'm saying if you do the math, what does the math care about? What are the variables? MV. Okay, those are the variables you're going to measure. I'm saying the math will tell you exactly what I believe. It'll give you a mass and a velocity at a location. We both agree on that. You're saying it has 4 times the energy for no good reason. That's the difference. You're squaring the velocity for no good reason. Okay. And it's worth reminding everyone that his system leads to breakage of conservation of energy. So it's just a lie. They won't show it. They won't demonstrate it. I've done all these examples over and over again explaining how their theory clearly violates conservation of energy. Clearly. Clear violation. Okay, the levers don't work. Somehow the lever can't somehow move. The one side of the lever isn't really moving 4 times as fast as the other side of the lever, when of course it has to. It's a rigid stick. There's no way to get around it. It actually has to come out right for momentum. You cannot violate that. And yet they say it magically has this extra energy, which he brushes under the rug and ignores. So I play all these crappy videos. I read all these crappy comments. Do they do any of the same? No. So just what a pile of lying sacks of really lousy, weak shit. These fucking cowards, just keep evading the argument and pretending they're making an argument. With this crappy, shitty experiment. This shitty experiment. He's saying his shitty fucking wooden stick experiments are going to prove there's no conservation of momentum. It's just so disgusting that this idiot would think he's going to be capable of doing that with his crappy little experiment. Thank you, mate, for that. Don't mind me if I know... Don't mind me. I knew you was being... tongue-in-cheek, whatever that is. You are right. Just watch my latest vid to see what you're saying demonstrated in my frustration. I don't even know what that means. I know I have to be careful. The whatever this is, dark end, whatever, of toxic, depressive misery. So what all of this has something to do with some other subject. So apparently they can't stay on the physics subject. All right, so if I was, let's say I was, I don't know, I walked in like gay pride parades or something. I was really aggressively defending being gay and all that kind of crap. Somehow they'd have to bring that up in the subject or something. So whatever your philosophical perspective is, they'd have to bring that up in a physics conversation. All right, thanks again, and let your words be a warning to anyone thinking of reasoned debate. So again, there's no reasoned debate here. They're despicable, lying cowards who never address a single point made, all right, and keep proselytizing and lying about what their evidence says. He is saying that his evidence shows kinetic energy working when it doesn't show that at all. All right. The draft science and his Kosh cult of self-hatred. So, no, I hate you. I hate assholes. You're the assholes. I'm clearly pointing to you and going, asshole. All right, and the facts will, in the end, okay, any fair-minded, reasonable person will agree, yes, just as there is momentum is conserved, it is a fact that this butthole is a smelly asshole. Very smelly. All right. Oh, a Brozo comment. Well, it's not too long. I got to get to the other video. Oh, shit. Let's see if anybody said anything. No, nobody said anything. All right, Gary has difficulty reading. He concedes. So what does that have to do with it? So again, all of this, you think this one paragraph says something. I've read out of books. I've read off of web pages. I have played physics lectures, but that's not good enough. No. Okay, so I have to read this crap from some 1942 book. So reading it out for him is an excellent idea. Yeah, a paragraph that doesn't prove a damn thing. It just says, I think Leibniz was right, and it's 1/2 mv squared. So that's what he just read. It doesn't say a damn thing. It doesn't show a damn thing. It doesn't prove a damn thing. This also cleared up something. I had been wondering for a while, but never got around to looking it up, whether center of mass was different from center of gravity. It depends on whether you're in gravity, fuckhead. Yeah, so if you're not in gravity, then yes, you don't have a center of gravity. Anyway, have you seen Michael Falwell's Now video yet? His Now video? Oh, he's got a Now video. It's another perfect example why Gary is wrong. You both deserve more subscribers, but so again, I don't understand. So he's got a lever that weighs 10 times as much as the weights he put on the lever. And so that experiment's going to get to the truth when the lever's diluting the weights by 10 times. Okay. My first run of my new experiment was a disaster because I hadn't realized I'd superglued a piece with less clearance than I realized, and it took ages to figure out why even the results both Gary and everyone else expect came out pretty wrong. So we got another experiment where he can't seem to get anywhere near a right answer. Oh, what a surprise. It's a perfect Brozo 14 experiment. So it took ages to figure out, and moving it, I had to knock on effects of the rollers no longer running as straight as they should. I'd rather get it right than rush. Yeah, as well. So this is the experiment that he is sure he already did it. It's supposed to have already proven, and now he just figured out somehow he's not getting the right answer. I mean, it just, well, it's such bullshit. These people are so full of shit. He was supposed to have this already pat. He's going to do the nice lever, pushes billiard balls, and somehow he's going to prove that the lighter ball only goes 1.4. And as I stated, what he's going to prove is that he's going to find a way to force it to happen. Just like this iron creep. My quick release gadget might be the cause. Yes, so again, Brozo failing to get quick release right. No big surprise there. Took ages to build now, and I might scrap it and do the more difficult way. Taking ages to tie knots in cotton to hold the object against the spring force, even with gadgets to hold them in place. Know what you do? I mean, I don't want to tell you how to do everything, but you take a cylinder and you tie your string around the cylinder, right? So like, let me think of something that's not a piece of plastic, whatever. And you make a bunch of them ahead of time and tie like triple knots on them. And then just slide them off the cylinder. And then they'll all be exactly the same size loops. And so then you could just replace the same size loop with the same size loop with the same size loop with the same size loop. No problem. But anyway. Walter Lewin didn't need to have precise tension on the thread or even exact same length because he wasn't doing comparative test. He was doing a comparison, but whatever. Just one off, which could have been pretty much any length of thread. Yes, he wasn't comparing different amounts of energy. He was just saying any amount will produce this result. But the fact is he was doing comparisons in the sense he was doing another experiment where you want to have the same amount of energy in both experiments to give the same effect in terms of appearances. It wouldn't look quite right if he put twice the force in the second experiment than he put in the first experiment. These things are sent to try us. Well, whatever this is. I'm delaying publishing the other related experiment because ideally they need seeing without a huge gap in time, by which time Gary can easily pretend the results were different or simply forget the experiment altogether. You know, I haven't forgotten any of your experiments. They're all crap, and I've pointed out why they're crap, and you haven't resurrected any of them from the crap pile. Unless there's an error which suits him to tout as proving him right when it clearly doesn't. Well, I'm just saying there's no better proof than you claiming victory. So he claimed he proved 1/2 mv squared when he predicted 16. My prediction was 12, and he got the answer 14. And he claimed he decidedly proved the kinetic energy theory. He decidedly proved it. Okay. What a pathetic liar. Pathetic cheater. Okay. Alright, so on to the next video. No commenters. It's just surprising. Nobody has anything to fucking goddamn say. Well, there's probably nobody here again. It's just part of the problem. But whatever. We will endeavor to persevere. Alright, so he's doing another one of these stupid stick experiments. Now he's added more crap to the stick. And he claims it can't possibly matter how many holes he drills in it, or how much weights he puts on it, or how many different attachments there are. It somehow can't possibly affect. Okay, if you know, we'll grant you that. What you're not proving here is either theory. So he's saying if they don't oscillate at the same speed, it can't be conservation of momentum. So he's basically saying there's no conservation of momentum. You can sort of understand, right? I mean, it's the same force being applied. You're apportioning the weight to a different location. Now, the fact that the weight's at a different location, the moment of inertia would exactly match for the two objects. So if he did the math that he's claiming is legitimate, if he actually did that math, all right, the math would say that, yes, if you put the two mass here, it's the same as if you put the one mass here. The moment of inertia, the angular inertia, the whatever inertia, if you actually did the math, it would say it's exactly the same for the two objects. This calculated inertia would be exactly the same as the half mass twice the distance inertia. The calculation would give you exactly the same fucking number. It would not say this one has more inertia. This one out here does not have more inertia. The math wouldn't say that. That's what I meant by show me the math. Show me the mathematical formula that you actually did, where you actually put the values in and show that this is proven to have more inertia out here. Because it won't be shown to have any more inertia. All it'll be shown to have is more kinetic energy. The squared part. The mv part will be exactly the fucking same. Oh, he's just such a liar.
Hello again, guys.
The guys. He's talking to the guys.
I'm not going to keep on labouring this.
Well, yeah, you are. So why don't you just do as I requested, right? So again, unfortunately, device where you can compress things on a rod and he can launch them into space. Okay, and it's a kind of simple mechanism. So he has kind of substantial weight. So it's a good piece of hardware. The amount of friction will be minimal because it is a lot of weight and a lot of force that he's pushing with, so it shouldn't be a big deal that the weight hits the rod a little bit. All right, and all he has to do is compress the weight, okay, and let it go with a 2 mass, and then mark where it goes, and then put a 1/2 mass on it and compress it to exactly the same weight, and then let it go. And if it goes 4 times higher, Gary wins. That's the simple argument. There'll be no sign of inertia. There'll be no sign of 1.4. None of that crap will happen. The same spring compression will in fact launch the half-mass object with twice the velocity, just like Professor Lewin said. It'll come out just like the professor of the physics at MIT says. So do that experiment, shit for brain.
But I wanted to get it even better.
So he thinks this is even better because he put a little clicky magnet on it so it makes more noise. Alright, so I'm really not, he's going to complain later in this video that I don't allow him to speak and that I sped him up and I did this and that. And it's outrageous. He plays none of my arguments, and this fucking cunt thinks he's entitled to me not speeding his video up because nobody could hear him. What a fucking lie. Your video doesn't even have fucking volume, and I'm giving you the courtesy of amplifying it enough so people can even hear it, you stupid retard. I mean, god damn. So anyway, yeah, so no, I'm not going to play your boring, dull, witless, stupid video, okay? I don't have any obligation to do that, so there's absolutely nothing in here. So nothing in here, he says absolutely nothing, just talks about inertia, and it's a little, I just wanted to add this clicky thing, I'm going to prove it. And so let's just get to the real experiment, right? That's the only part that matters. So let's see the experiment.
Out distances. Right. So let's have no more of that nonsense.
So he's saying it doesn't matter whether there's bolts in here. It doesn't matter how much we changes the center of mass of this object. I'm saying, yeah, I get what you're saying, that it shouldn't matter. But the fact is that you've got one side of the lever is this long. The other side of the lever is this long. So he's got a big pile of stick that's already putting force on the spring. And then he's going to add weights. Now, obviously, those weights are going to be diluted by the force that the spring is already experiencing. So you already have 3 pounds of force, and then you add 9 pounds, you know. And yes, theoretically, it shouldn't matter because when you put it twice the distance, you're just doubling half the weight, and you're making them the same weight because they would balance. So I can concede your argument, but I'm saying, wouldn't the experiment be much better if you didn't have all that crap on it? That's my only argument. It would look better to me. It'd be cleaner if you didn't have anything to distract from the simple comparison you're supposed to be making. You're supposed to be isolating the two weights in space moving. Do you understand that that's the only interesting part of the experiment, and all the other extra shit is just a way of, perhaps fucking it up. Now, he never showed us him measuring these distances, so if he doesn't have these distances right, the experiment's shit. He never really weighed the crap. He just says it weighs about half. I mean, the fact that he's taking 2 on and putting 2 off, I don't know. Maybe he's just putting 1 on and then he adds 2 single washers. So we don't get to see any of that stuff. So he makes an 11-minute video and he doesn't put any of that crap in it. He just puts a bunch of his rhetoric in it. Inertia, inertia, inertia. There's no fucking inertia.
Let's see if they roughly go the same speed. We'll have a race. Come on, let's enjoy ourselves.
Oh, yeah, it's all this baby talk.
Both springs. 1, 2, 3, go.
Right, so you heard a little bit, click, click, little tiny bit, blah, 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 pretty close. Now, later you're going to hear the same thing, so I'm just saying, just recognize that was a little bit off. It wasn't a perfect bang.
Now, I don't know how many times I can repeat this.
Yeah, I don't know how many times you can. You won't put it in slow motion. You don't do frame-by-frame analysis. You don't do anything, okay? So, yeah, it's a really lazy piece of shit experiment. So thank you very much for doing it very imprecisely and unqualitatively, and then claiming you now have proof that you have violated conservation of momentum. So again, that's what he's claiming. These experiments will prove there is no conservation of momentum.
Well, something being disturbed. But it's to demonstrate roughly that they're accelerating at the same rate. 1, 2, 3, go.
Right, so that was pretty close.
Which is what you would.
So, we could just back it up and do a crude frame by frame, just see the launching moment, right? That's the impact. That's the part that really matters here, right? So he has no quick release. He's using a stick. So the stick is completely dependent on him not turning the stick in one direction a little bit more, because that'll put more pressure on one spring than the other. And as he pointed out when he did his little launching thing, that all you have to do is move this little spring a little bit, and it makes a huge difference in how far the object fires. So anyway, so the two things, one experiment should have given him some insight into how delicate this is in terms of how essential a quick release is. But anyway, they don't get it. So there's not much I can do. Mindless Marbles doesn't get it. They don't get that this really is important. The most important feature of this experiment is how you allow the energy to be liberated. That's the trickiest part. Well, I mean, obviously it's also tricky that the distance between the fulcrum and these bolts he put in has to be exactly correct. And that means the lever has to be consistent in terms of the density of the wood. But no, let's not pay attention to any of those facts. But anyway, continuing. So let's just see if we can see any of that. All right, can you see this? No, you can't see it. Oh, it's very good that I looked. Whew. Yeah. Oh, we didn't miss anything but the reading, right? Yeah, so we didn't miss anything. All right. So let's see what we can see. Okay, so go. That looks really even, right? They're both leaving at the same time, so that looks pretty goddamn even, right? Righto. Okay, bang. All right. No doubt about it.
Which is what you would expect, isn't it?
In it.
Give or take.
Yes, the part we already agree on, you don't have to do 4 times. So the part where I am not disagreeing.
Put the half mass at 2 distances. And they weigh the same, they have the same force on the lever.
So he's conceding it's the same force on the lever, it's the same weight. So wherever I put them, I could put more force on the spring and they move them all kinds of positions and they're going to weigh the same until I go above that 45-degree mark. So just understand, once I start tilting the lever enough, all of a sudden they don't weigh anything in this direction. And they only weigh friction on the lever itself. All of the energy is just friction. The lever isn't a lever anymore. It's not a balance anymore. So it's just the idea of, again, people understanding how circles work. Circles going on this side are doing a lot of up and down. And across the top, they're doing a lot of side to side. The side to side motion has nothing to do with gravity, essentially, where obviously the up and down motion has a lot to do with gravity and weight. So they don't technically weigh the same when they're all the way vertical. So when this 5 mass, let's say, okay, that now weighs a 10 in gravity, it's going to go back to being a 5 when I start turning it on the arc. It's progressively going to regain its original 5 mass, and it's no longer going to be a 10 weight. But all these, it just doesn't matter. Again, they won't deal with the specific argument that keep the lever's motion minimal, and that way it'll be mostly up and down, and that's where you measure the real gravitational effect. Obviously, the balance only works in gravity. If I take this balance into space, it doesn't work anymore. Space away from the Earth's gravity. The balance doesn't work anymore. Sundials don't work anymore. Lots of things don't work anymore when you take them out of gravity.
Gary says that this one must accelerate at twice the velocity.
To conserve momentum, it must. So yes, exactly as Professor Lewin said, twice the mass, half the velocity. Okay, that's what he said. That's the exact quote. So you're saying you're going to tell Professor Lewin he's wrong. Okay, fine. So you're going to prove physics is wrong to think there's a concept of conservation of momentum. You're conceding it's the same force on the spring, and yet the same force on the spring will not produce the same momentum in the outcome. So you have an in of a certain amount of momentum that's the same, and the outcome of your experiment is less momentum in one of the objects. And yet you're going to say you don't have to account for it? Yes, you have to account for it. Where did it go? It has to have gone somewhere. So explain where the extra momentum went that you didn't have because your inertia stopped it from being happening. Well, where did it go? You can't say it went nowhere unless you really believe there's no conservation of momentum. So go ahead and say those words. Will you have the courage to say you don't believe in the principle of the conservation of momentum? Or the law of the conservation of momentum? Do you have the integrity? Do you have any kind of sense of decency that will allow you to exactly say what your experiment is disproving? You are disproving that momentum is conserved. That's what your experiment proves. Will you account for that statement? That yes, that's what you intend to do. That's what you have done. You're very proud to have done it. Fucking lying sack of shit.
Of the one mass back here, it must do, because it's twice as far out. It must accelerate at twice the velocity. It would do if you could...
To conserve the momentum, it must
apply the same force to it.
So he says it's the same force, and now he says it's not the same force. It's the same spring compression, same spring pressure. So he's basically just saying, you know, I compress this spring, and I put a 2 mass on it, and it compresses this much, and I launch it, and I compress it the exact same amount, and then I launch it, and I don't get twice the velocity. Half the mass, not twice the velocity. So completely opposite of what Professor Lewin says. Same force, no, I can get completely different amounts of velocity. It doesn't have to conserve momentum, because I'm going to conserve kinetic energy. So he believes in the conservation of kinetic energy, which physicists won't say is a real thing, but he doesn't believe in conservation of momentum.
But we're going to demonstrate that the same spring can't apply the same force because of its inertia.
So he keeps saying the word. I keep arguing it's an absolute pile of crap as a word. There's no such thing as any resistance to motion. So show me in space where anything, in free space without friction, show me where anything experiences this inertia thing, where it resists moving. It only requires you. It's like saying a soda machine is resisting giving me a Coke. I put no money in the machine, and somehow it's resisting. It's not giving me a soda. Yeah, well, it won't give you the soda till you force it to. So, yeah, but it's not resisting in any way. You actually have to attempt to cause something to happen. You can't just wish it to happen.
That thing that's 2,000 years old, or as old as the goddamn planet, if you like.
So it really isn't, okay, as a concept or an idea. And again, it only exists because, yes, humans live on a friction surface. And so they've encountered this resistance to movement. But there is none in the nature of objects. There is nothing saying, I will not accept your momentum. Everything's saying, yes, just give it to me and I'll take it.
So I get frustrated.
You're an idiot. Just preaching your Jesus
I say
theory.
that it won't accelerate as fast as the back one because of the inertia. And we can prove it.
All right, so he's claiming he's proving it with this piece of shit experiment. And again, the claim is, just be clear, he's saying there's no conservation of energy here. He's saying he can destroy the energy with his inertia thing. The inertia will destroy the energy.
Not cheating. There's no difference in friction.
There's all kinds of differences. Again, the fact that none of my experiments looked at, any of the diagrams I drew had nothing to do with this crap, obviously. Because the whole point is to isolate the weight change, not to isolate a whole bunch of other crap.
Because we've shown that with both levers moving at the same rate, there's no difference in them.
There is a difference. That he's shown us is the difference, actually. So again, that's another lie.
1, 2.
All right, so now we have the one mass on one of them twice the distance. It theoretically has to move twice the speed or you don't conserve the momentum. But we'll just do it with the little clicky thing here just because you're going to see that, oh, wait a minute, it isn't quite as clean as the other experiment where they both left the same time. Somehow that doesn't happen.
3, go.
All right, so I didn't catch that one very quickly, but clearly one's way behind already. Okay, but it's not enough behind to say KE works. Okay, KE squared. I mean, MV squared. All right, so one of them clicked, and the other one's, this one might even prove kinetic energy. It's so far behind. Look how far behind that is. Way the fuck behind. All right, so yeah, we'll play that one again because that one obviously got a terrible start.
Shown that with both levers moving at the same rate, there's no difference in them.
I should time code this, so I don't have to, try to find the right spot again. Anyway, so let's see if we can do this quickly. Quickly. He has to do the 3, 2, 1 thing. All right, so you can see now this one's a little lower than that one, so he'll readjust some more. There's readjusting a little. Oh, whoops, the other one went way ahead of the other one. Whoops. Whoops, that one moved a little, so now they're sort of even. Okay.
3.
Now, so that's on 3. They're looking really even. But let's see what happens when he pulls his little stick away. So he said go. It's not going yet. All right, so yeah, look, right off the start, huge difference, right? So you can see that, oops, maybe this is a time where a quick release might be important. So big, giant difference. Okay, so let's play the next round. See what that one does. Again, he should be doing all this, right? I mean, he should be frame rating these videos. If he's going to make an argument here, I'm proving there's no conservation of momentum. And he should at least give us the measurement between the center of this post and the center of this post and the center of this post to even make sure he's got these distances right. Because that's sort of critical. Alright, so pretty close. Looks pretty even. Camera angle isn't perfect either here. Okay, now he's counting. 1, 2, and... Okay, let's see how this one turns out. I didn't do this before, so it's all news to me too. Okay, we heard the 3. Go. So we said to go.
Go.
There we go. So again, the back one's way ahead, all right off the start. I mean, right off the start, it's already twice the distance in a sense, right? In the same amount of distance, it's twice as far. So it's a substantial head start. And it just maximizes that head start. See, the initial pressure on the spring is the highest, right? As he's pushing, he's putting the maximum pressure on the spring. So you can understand that any fluctuation in how those things are released, it's going to have the maximum effect because you're applying the maximum pressure. Later on, if you fudged it or you hit it or you did something, it wouldn't matter as much because it has so much less energy to lose. But it has the most energy to lose at the start. So if the start isn't perfect, the rest of it's going to be shit. So that one's ahead, but not nearly as bad as the last time, right? This one's pretty close to being ready to hit, so it's not nearly as far. So 2 experiments, 2 different results. Okay. Now this third one, when I watched the video, I'm saying, what? You just, so this third one they should be really close because it sounds like they're really close. So all he's proving is that each time he does the experiment, he can get a different answer. So what he should try to do is actually cheat. Actually try to release the slow one early. And just see if you can get them both to move at exactly the same speed and hit at the same time. See if you can cheat a little to force that to happen. And maybe that'll look like a perfect result. So that'd be the funny part. But of course he doesn't do all that stuff. I mean, he doesn't poke at this experiment in the sense of try different things. He does 3 and says, that's it. In his other video, he's just redoing this again. So he does a second video where he just redoes the same shit again. Okay, so here we go. Way off there, right? Okay, so we're going to have to wait for him to fix all that. And that one's up a little. That one's down a little. Okay, they're looking pretty even now. So this is a big one. So,
1, 2.
Okay, so we're almost to the 3. All right, so this one's important. So let's see how much difference there is in this one. Because this one, I think, they got off at the same time. All right, looks really even.
3.
Okay, this should be it.
Go.
Okay, so they both jittered a little. So this one looked like it went. The front one looked like it went backwards just a hair. Yeah. So yeah. All right. So yeah, they got off to the same time this time, right? Look how the tiny difference this time. So he does 3 experiments. The first one, this much distance between them when they hit. The second one, this much distance between them when they hit. And this one's just going to be this much distance. And this is what he calls his proof. He's now proven there's no conservation of momentum with this experiment. He just proved there's no conservation of momentum. I mean, this is worse than the free energy crap you see, you know, where they have batteries in the experiment, all kinds of bullshit. This is worse. This is a good science. You proved this? You proved something with this piece of shit experiment? This is all you have to do, is an experiment of this poor quality where the 3 examples produce 3 completely different results, and you're saying, see, doesn't that just prove it? No, that does exactly the opposite of proving it. This is the exact opposite of what proof should look like. So they hit bang. I mean, I couldn't hear the difference. I mean, bang. They hit at the same time. I mean, it's just so stupid. I mean, can you get stupider than this? And he's going to say, see? Can't you tell how they hit completely different times? I mean, just like, what the fuck? Oh, God damn. How could they be this obnoxious? I mean, to make these bold claims, to do all this bullshit, and then produce this pile of steaming shit. Alright, so we have to do it again, just because it's just, I mean, it's even funny. Like, I didn't, I was saying, I didn't run it in slow motion to see, because I could just go by hearing it. I said, well, Jesus, that sounded like the same to me. And so I noticed that. I said, well, why did he leave that in the video? I mean, he just basically proved, see, my experiment is worthless because it came out exactly as Gary would have predicted. I mean, just too stupid. Alright, I can play this. Wait till the 1, 2, 3. Okay, here we go. Alright, so they start off pretty goddamn. You can only see one of them, so this time he's really got them lined up. Okay, there's the 3 go. No, we haven't got go yet. There's go. Okay, so it looks really well lined up. Really, okay. But there'll be a little jitter here. Okay, we didn't see that. Alright, but tiny difference, right? Last time, right off the start, huge difference. Just a tiny difference off the start. Tiny difference. Tiny difference still. They're still even blended into each other. Before, huge separation by the halfway point. Huge separation between the 2 levers. No separation here. They're still blended. The brown is still one color there. They're still overlapping each other enough. Alright, this stage you can see the weights still haven't separated from each other. So the pin... That is kind of funny that you can still see a weight here. It shouldn't be here. Oh, he's got the 2 mass and 2 mass again. Oh, so he changed the experiment. Weird.
Is anybody?
So from here to here he changed. So he only did it twice.
Won't accelerate as fast as the back one because of the inertia, and we can prove it.
How did I miss that? How did he change that without me seeing it?
There's no difference in friction because we've shown that with both levers moving at the same rate. There's no difference in them.
So my bad. Okay, the last one was the 2 mass against the 2 mass. But the point is you could see they did leave at the same time. So I really didn't see him switch the weights. I mean, I honestly didn't see him do that. Let's see if we can see him doing that. So we only did the experiment twice.
1, 2, 3, go.
Okay, and there's a difference. No doubt about that. But I would argue the difference is in how he's releasing it. Alright, so there's where he took the weight off. Okay, yeah, I just didn't see that part. Okay. So never mind. Okay. My bad. I didn't see him switch the weights back again. So we only did 2 versions of the experiment. So I played those 2. You could see that those were different. One of them was a bigger separation than the other one. And you could just conclude that he could probably keep doing the experiment and create them where they don't have any separation. But he didn't do that. He didn't show us that anyway. All right. So we'll go to this conclusion. All right. So again, poorly, I mean, you know, he could have been clearer about that.
I can't feel the difference.
Okay, so this part is important. So we'll let him have his speak here. All right. So I made an argument about a balanced lever and you being able to tell the difference. It's supposed to weigh the same. So I'm saying the same weight can't weigh different. So that seems like a kind of rational argument, right? 9 pounds can't weigh 10 pounds. It can't weigh 15 pounds. Certainly can't weigh 18 pounds. And it doesn't. If you push on a lever and you have the masses moved around, you won't be able to tell the difference because it's the same weight. You're moving the same weight. Moving the same weight can't be moving different weights. Moving the same weight has to be moving the same weight. It has to weigh the same. So it's just a ridiculous statement that somehow he can tell the difference. The same weight doesn't weigh the same, and he can tell that the same weight doesn't weigh the same. It doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. It's moronic.
And why that's important, that one movement, that one acceleration, is because if somebody had a blindfold here, where I'm holding this end, if I was wearing a blindfold, Gary says this 9 pounds is the same as 9 pounds out here. Okay, so, or 5. Let's just use 5. I put 10 pounds here, or I put 5 pounds out here. The lever math says they produce the same weight. They produce the same resistance to motion. They produce the same inertia. Okay, that's what the math actually says. It's the same inertia. Okay, so your argument is that somehow, even though we know it's the same weight, you can tell the difference with your magic powers. Even though it's the same weight, you can tell the difference. I can't feel the difference. Because if I put 2 masses there, or 1 mass there, and as it is true, you can't, as it's in a static position, you won't. Of course, we know that.
So when it's in a static position, so it's and obviously not in a static position, right? Anytime you're putting pressure on it, it's a constant force. You have to keep pushing against it. It's never a constant position, so you're always measuring its weight because there's always a force pushing on you. You can't have a weight and then say the weight doesn't weigh anything. Obviously, weights by their very nature are applying a pressure, and you have to provide a counter force if they are to being static. They can't be static unless you apply the counter force, and if it's a constant force pushing, then you have to apply a constant force opposing. So none of this gibberish he's talking makes any sense at all, and he thinks this is a great educational video. He's doing it for the children. Yeah. Oh, it's just so disgusting.
It's the same force, but if you try and accelerate it,
so you try to just move its position. So you're taking the same weight and you're going to move it from point A to point B, and we're supposed to believe that the same weight here takes less energy to move than the same weight over here. This takes more energy to move. This same weight, okay, requires more energy when no math says so. So I'll say it again. Show me your mathematical equation that says this takes more energy without applying the v squared crap. Show how the mv says so. The mv doesn't say so. The mv says it's exactly the same momentum. So just concede that the momentum theory says it takes exactly the same momentum to move the 2 objects. The force equals the momentum. That's Newton's law, fuckhead. Read Newton's second law as Newton wrote it, and he explains to you, you want twice the velocity? Apply twice the force. He says it plainly.
try and accelerate it, which I'm reproducing that first acceleratory movement. And I'm blindfolded. Half the mass now. Yeah, I bloody well can feel the difference, and anybody can.
Says you, frankly. Yes, okay. Maybe he holds it different. Let's see if he has his different. Well, we're not going to bother finger positions, but whatever. Let him have his say.
And when he says he couldn't, you had a bit of a coat hanger wire with a couple of light magnets on one end.
I didn't have coat wire, lyre. You know, it's a nice hunk of steel tubing, very light, very thin.
You wouldn't feel it. It wasn't enough mass for the sense organ of the human arm.
Well, whatever. Blah, 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 blah. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. You're saying there's no conservation of momentum. You're making a bold claim. You ought to put up, you know, and you ought to say it clearly that that's what you're saying doesn't happen. MV is not conserved. You're saying it loudly, but you won't say the actual words. Have the courage to say the actual words. You don't believe in conservation of momentum. You believe nature can finagle momentum.
Feel it. But with the serious weights like this one, which is 3/4 of a pound, on a big long lever, you bloody well can feel it. Now stop your bloody...
Yeah, just listen to God and Jesus. If you listen, you can hear them. I can hear Jesus just fine. That's all he's doing here. You're nuts. Okay. The end.
Bloody idiot.
Yeah, you bloody fucking liar. Sack of shit. Fucking coward. Despicable, lying coward. I'll make sure you can hear this crap he spews.
You can feel it. Absolutely can you.
Can
You
you?
ever do it again? You're getting bored yet, Gary? Speeded me up, have you?
Speeded him up. So again, he's complaining about me speeding up his videos. He won't play any of my videos. He won't play my counter arguments. You know what he'll do? Maybe now, because I'm challenging him to, he'll find some place where I made a mistake and I said something wrong, and he'll quote mine. But will he play the videos I directed right at him? Will he show the gun analogy? Will he show the lever analogy? Will he show the cylinder analogy? Will he show any of those arguments and counter them with some kind of theory? Will he show me saying, what the fuck is inertia? Will you explain it to me? Because I can't see it anywhere. How have you changed the MV at all in your wacky experiment? Will you deal with the physics girl experiment, okay? You convert a 5-ton train into a 10-ton train. It has exactly the same momentum after the conversion. Exactly the same. Yet, you say you lost half the energy, you made sounds, you dented, you bent, you deheated, and you didn't use any momentum to do it? You really think that you can move stuff in the environment, you can make sound, you can bend metal, you can make sparks, and you don't have to use momentum?
So nobody can hear what I'm saying.
So again, he's complaining that nobody can hear what he is saying when he's not even talking into the microphone. Okay, so let's get to understand. But you know that because I sped him up not like twice as fast. Okay, I just sped him up a little tiny bit, and it's a common practice. Brozo's done it to my videos. It's not an outrageous thing to do.
Give me a fair chance.
A fair chance to what? To say the word inertia 1,768 times and not explain what the fuck it is. How the fuck does the lighter mass resist being moved? How does it do that? What kind of air brakes does it have? How the fuck does it possibly do that, especially in the context of Professor Lewin overtly telling you half the mass, twice the velocity?
Cutting over the top, interrupting.
Interrupting. What? So I should play your video without counter-arguing the points. That would make sense to you. Yeah, I'll just play your video, and then, after the video's over, I'll go through the 643 points you made, okay, in the right order. No, that would be stupid. I'll replay the video again, and then I'll argue it again. Is that what you want? And you won't do anybody else the same courtesy ever. And you're complaining? I mean, amazing.
Nobody can follow what you're saying. It's an unfair treatment.
Oh, I mean, amazing. So, okay, he's never played any of my arguments. He's never countered any of my specific arguments. He's never drawn the lever. He's never drawn the guns. He's never drawn the spaceship. He's never done any of it. And this fucking lying weasel is complaining that I've mistreated him by playing his fucking videos. I mean, you really can't... I mean, how low will these people go?
I would urge anybody that's interested in the argument that follow Gary, please come to my channel and watch these videos.
This is what is this? Please subscribe. Thumbs up me. What the hell is this shit? Oh, just amazing. Just a fucking amazing. To watch this kind of crap. I have debunked all of physics by proving there's no conservation of momentum. Look at my great experiments where I debunk physics. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. More flat earth bullshit.
Me not being interrupted.
Interrupt. I mean, disgusting. He doesn't say anything. He makes a video reading one paragraph of tripe. I mean, what's to not be interrupted? What's a couple? Did you explain? You haven't explained what a couple is yet.
My argument, a fair chance.
Oh, I mean, it's just amazing. There's no argument here. Where did you make an argument? Where's the argument? Please, where's the explanation? Where's any context? Where's anything explaining what an inertia is? Why does the half mass resist change more than the double mass? Why is that true? Where is that theory presented in physics? Can you link me to a physicist saying what you're saying? That this is how it turns out? No, you can't. Can you link to another experiment where you're duplicating the results? No, you can't. Oh, God damn it. I do hate this planet. Oh, we should do the comments. Yes, my bad. Ugh. Alright, so Mindless Marvels is, I don't know, disagreeing? I don't know. Let's see. The magnet proposal is a really clever idea. I love it. Well, I don't know if it's that great, frankly. I mean, the magnets attract. It puts a new force into the experiment. I don't know. Introducing another force doesn't seem like a great idea. I mean, it seems to me if you wanted a sound effect, you could just put a bell or something. But whatever. I enjoy seeing the improvements made to the experiment because we actually care about this stuff, unlike Gary wants to falsely frame other people. So where did I falsely frame this as being other than, okay, you're completely debunking all the conventional physics videos online. All of the conventional physics videos say you have to conserve momentum. You're debunking it, fine. Where am I being unfair to that? Okay. One correction, at 6:45, you said the same spring can't apply the same force to the rods because the moment of inertia is different. This is false. So again, what do you mean it's false? It's essential to the outcome. How is it possible? Obviously, the same force isn't affecting the two objects that apply the same force. So it applies the same force to the same weight and gets a different result. That's what we're supposed to believe. The difference is in the rotation between the angular acceleration, and again, the angular acceleration is mv. Okay, it's just a mass moving a velocity. And the torque. The torque is exactly that, a mass moving a velocity. That's the torque. Okay, so this is all just crap because these equations, okay, as long as you're, see, angular acceleration is where they're going to square the term. Every time you see the word acceleration, you have to say, oh, wait a minute, are they talking about real acceleration or that faked acceleration times acceleration thing? Okay, rearranging, we get angular acceleration equals torque divided by inertia, right, which will give you the answer that basically says the two have to apply the same you have to conserve the momentum. The mv will be conserved. So if they actually did this math instead of just writing it, the mv will be conserved. Okay, the torque by the spring doesn't change. So again, it doesn't make any sense. The moment of inertia does, but it is equal to ml squared. That's not the that's not the moment of inertia, because again he has the squared term in here. Totally useless. Doesn't tell you anything. The mv will be the same. The mass times the velocity has to be the same. Whether you believe in kinetic energy or not, those two pieces of the formula puzzle will be exactly the same. The mv numbers will be the same. You can't change them. By changing the denominator and keeping the numerator the same, the resulting angular acceleration changes. So again, there's no evidence that any of this crap happens, so no point. It's the same deal with linear acceleration. So he's just pointing out that yes, we do the same thing. We square accelerations to create fake energy. So there's nothing new here. We can imagine the mass changing and the force kept the same, and the linear acceleration would change. So why would we be imagining changing the mass? That's not what we're doing. This analogy carries over to the rotational case. You keep torque the same, which you did, but change the moment of inertia, resulting in a different angular acceleration. So again, the prediction is that the MVs would be the same. The math says the MVs are the same. All right. So it has to be moving twice as fast for their own formula to be correct. It has to go twice as fast. All right. Anyway, all right. There's no point. Let's see what else. If there's anything else here worth wasting time with. Well said. I meant that. Okay. On the second viewing, perhaps you meant to say force applied to the actual weight on the lever as opposed to the lever itself. I don't know. You meant to say force applied to the actual weight on the lever as opposed to the lever itself. So he's making a distinction between the force you're applying to the lever and the force you're applying to the weight, which frankly have to be the same. In that case, I agree. It doesn't. I mean, it has to be the same within the fact that he has a fixed lever. You know, the lever has more weight on one side than the other, so the spring has to lift the entire lever, which does change the center of mass. Okay, so you have to argue that maybe your 2-to-1 relationship gets broken by the fact that you have the lever weight. So yeah, I might as well draw that. I mean, it's a real argument. You know, just kind of pointing out that, you know, they're not taking into anything, you know, they're not paying any attention first to what I actually say and actually debunking the experiment I proposed. So it's just another example of how they keep evading and perverting what I'm saying. So, you know, I propose something simple. Okay, you have a lever. All right, it's got the same mass on this side as this side. And the simple argument is if I put a 2 mass here or a 1 mass here, and I could just switch them any way I wanted to, it would always weigh the same at this exact point. So if this point says this weighs 2, okay, then it's going to say that the half mass, twice the distance, also weighs 2. Okay. It's going to feel exactly the same. It's the same weight, same mass. Okay, it's nice balanced lever. He's doing this. Fulcrum here and then a long lever. So he's got a lot more mass over here, all right, than he has over here. So the spring has to lift the whole lever. So this mass of the lever is now not counterbalanced by a mass on this side. So there's no counterbalancing mass. So the spring has to do this mass of the whole lever. So when you change from the 1 mass here to the 2 mass here, you have to take into account the fact that you're dividing both of these things. You're adding the extra mass. Okay, this extra mass has to be added to this mass and has to be added to this mass. So it's not a 2-to-1 relationship anymore. It's whatever, 1.78 to you know, whatever, 96 relationship. It's not a 2-to-1 relationship. But, like I said, they can't do this kind of stuff. Again, they can't tell that round objects penetrating clay is not the same. You can change the shape of an object and you'll change how far it goes into the clay. They can't even get that argument. So, obviously, any of these other arguments are going to go way the fuck over their head. All right. All right, let's see what this moron says. Don't let him get under your skin, Ian. It's not healthy. Remember when I said trying to get through to him is like trying to knock a nail with a sponge. So that's an ironically funny statement, right? He's basically admitting we're applying such a weak, feeble argument that why would we expect to be nailing anything with our sponge? Our experiments are so bad, our evidence is so shitty. Why the fuck would we think we could convince anybody with this weak sponge we're whacking the guy with? Of course he's not convinced, because our argument is so weak. I mean, it's just so ironic. He just joked himself. Whatever the word for that is, where you joke yourself. Oh, and this even is a joke. Thank you, mate. Did you like my inertia? And again, I'll say it again. Yes, where did you explain what inertia is? What the fuck? How does the the half mass, know it's supposed to make more inertia? How exactly does it do this? I'll make more inertia. Okay. Your pronunciation was spot on, mate. Yeah, so, whatever. Too stupid. Alright, so that one wasn't much. See anything in the comments. There, we have some comments. Good. Because they are at the same distance. Yes, I got that. Wow. He said he will show you when he figures out what honesty is. That won't happen, right? I mean, he's pretty old, frankly. If these people can't figure out what, doing things straight up and honestly, if they can't figure that out already, they're probably not going to figure it out. Oh, great, mindless marbles. In conventional physics, the origin of inertia is considered a mystery. So obviously there isn't any. I don't know why we keep talking about it. And it's not really a mystery. Okay, that's just kind of more bullshit. Because when Richard Feynman said, when my father taught me about it, he said it was a mystery. But it's clearly not a mystery. I mean, the thing moves in the wagon because of friction. If there's no friction, it doesn't move at all. And the more friction there is, the more it moves with the wagon. There's no inertia. There's just recognizing that you have to have contact with the object. If you don't contact the object, if you don't couple with the object, well, then you can't share your energy with it. But there's no inertia. All right, well, anyway, Dennis Skizma and others tried to use Mach's principle. So again, it's just so, you're going to make me go insane with this crap. That's that stupid lying German guy's bullshit. That somehow the rest of the universe is the context you have to understand Newton's anti-relativity experiment. Somehow the rest of the universe made it happen. There's no principle involved here. We know the rest of the universe has no gravitational effect, net effect. So how the fuck could the rest of the universe be causing any of these effects? It's idiotic. Mach's principle is retarded. That's why Einstein said, I don't get you. Okay, I mean, he was a great friend of Mach's until Mach started saying shit that just didn't make any sense at all. To create a theory of origin of inertia, but it never worked. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't make any fucking goddamn sense. There's no inertia. I don't know why do people fall for this? The idea is okay, if something's stuck on a surface, I have to apply more energy to get it to move than if it was in free space. If it was in free space, it would move really easy. But on Earth, yeah, things move a little bit chunky because they have to go through atmosphere or they have to rub against the ground. But that's it. There's no inertia, you fucktards. How do you keep defending this idea that things are resisting change? They're merely saying, push me and I will go. They're saying it to you. Go ahead, push me and I'll move. Boxers hit each other back and forth. Do you think the inertia stops their face from going all crooked? No. It moves perfectly well. All you have to do is hit their face and their face will deform. There's no fucking inertia. Anyway. Okay. Ian Gosling is clearly just playing around and not taking the subject seriously. They just want to complain and make excuses. Well, whatever. I mean, so that those generalizations are just not that very useful. It's pretty unfortunate because this whole argument has been going on for 2 years, for a while. No, 2 years. And yet we still can't get even the littlest explanation. We can't get any explanation of theory. Okay, no one's going to explain how, again, the half-mass knows it's supposed to have more inertia, whatever the fuck that would be, and it's supposed to resist changing, even though it's supposed to conserve the momentum. So it's supposed to conserve the momentum, but it's supposed to move less. No, it can't do both of those. All right, my understanding is inertia is the axiom for Newton's law of motion. Right, and the laws of motion are just kind of statements, right? I mean, you don't have to take them too seriously. You want to understand the principle. So the equal and opposite one I've explained to you. Obviously, it's equal and opposite. If I give somebody $10, I'm $10 poorer. So that one's really easy to understand. Yes, I give something, I'm $10 poorer. I lost it, he gained it, equal and opposite in that sense. Okay, one guy goes up, one guy's arrow is going up, one guy's arrow is going down. Duh, really simple. And the other example is the explosion. All the other energy is in the form of an explosion. Explosions go both ways. So duh again. So yeah, it fits, but you don't have to take it literally that there's a counter force. There's no counter force that forces things to be balanced. If I give something away, I don't have it. If I take this and I say, I have it, it's mine, and then I give it away, then he has it and I don't have it. Now that the circumstance is opposite. There's no opposite God, or the referee didn't take it away from me and say, you have to lose one of these because you gave one away. There's nothing saying I have to lose one because I already lost it by giving it away. I shouldn't have to make these arguments. Come on, you people can do a little bit of this work on your own. All right, anyway. My understanding of inertia is the axiom for Newton's laws of motion. Inertia is the first law. Well, I'd say it's the third, frankly. But anyway, it seems you suggest inertia doesn't exist. Do you disagree with Newton about inertia? No, I'm saying Newton is absolutely correct. You have to hit something. It will continue in its motion until you apply a fucking force. There's nothing saying it won't stop moving. It's not saying, you can't stop me. I have inertia. It's saying, go ahead, apply a force and I'll change. And if it's standing still, it's saying, I will stand still until you tell me not to. So, you have to tell me really loud, like, you have to, blow on me. You have to apply a force. So how am I contradicting Newton's first law? Did Newton say it is resisting motion? Is that what Newton said? Is it resists motion? No. It's just saying it won't move until you apply a force to it. You have to apply a force to change something. It won't change by itself. Okay, so I'm in perfect agreement with the it won't change by itself rule. So if we can all agree, the first law is basically saying it won't change by itself. Nothing will be changed if you do not change it. That's the law. I don't even think that should have to be a law, right? I shouldn't really have to explain to you that, well, yes, there's this rule that nothing changes unless something changes it. I mean, things don't get painted if somebody doesn't paint them. Yeah, you have to paint the painting so there's no paintings. Duh. Oh, fuck, god damn it. I mean, yeah. I did get a comment on one video, and you're just like, oh, shit, these people will not stop trying to defend this crap. So I might as well read that while we're on a little break here. All right, in the stopping distance calculations at around 2610, you need to subtract the thinking distance of 3 meters per 10 miles per hour to get the braking distance. So he's contriving an excuse to try to make it work by saying you have to subtract the thinking distance. Now let's just understand. Let's say if you were going to measure braking distance, right? And you were going to do it as a scientist. That is, you were going to actually, try to get the accurate numbers. Do you think, you would be so stupid that you'd say, well, you tell me when you stepped on the brake, and that's when I'll start. So when you tell me, I'm stopping now, that's when I'll start the timer, right? Do you think, I don't think you're that stupid that that's how you would design the experiment, right? So you know if they actually did a braking experiment, they would never ask the person, tell me what you're thinking. Okay? They're not going to do that. They're going to measure right when the brake pedal hits, okay? That's what they're going to start and say, oh, the brakes are on. They're going to wait for the mechanical process of the guy's foot hitting the brake, you know, where the caliper actually presses against the disc. That's when they're going to start the timer, you know, and then they're going to measure how long it takes for the car to stop. They're not going to ask this asshole, hey, when did you step on the brake? That's not going to happen. So we know it's a lie that they even put this reacting thing in there. And then you know that, say if you were just looking, you know, you're looking, and whether something is 1,000 feet away or 100 feet away, there's a point where you see it, right? You see it and your brain reacts. And the reaction time will always be the same. So it doesn't matter how far away it is. It doesn't matter how fast it's moving towards you. None of that stuff is going to change your reaction time. So the reaction time is a static amount of time. It doesn't matter whether you're going 25 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour, 6 miles an hour. When you notice you have to put the brake on, will exactly be the same amount of time. So the thinking time is always going to be exactly the same unit of time. And obviously when you're going 50 miles an hour, that unit of time will use up. Because you're going 50 miles an hour, it's going to be twice as much as when you're 25 miles an hour. Obviously, the time, the amount of distance you'll travel before you say my reaction time takes place is going to mean that you're going to have traveled before you step on the brake this huge amount of time at 50 and then this much smaller amount of time at 25. Obviously. So what you're saying in your comment is absolute lie bullshit, okay? This isn't science. You're not doing science. You're making up some fake excuse to say, see, it really does work. No, it really doesn't work. Their numbers aren't accurate. They don't show the actual kinetic energy theory to be correct. And the fudge they're using actually fudges in the opposite direction. That is, if you actually understand what reaction time is and that it's the same for every experiment, that the truth is the numbers get even worse. The real numbers get even worse. So you're just such, you know, I just don't, why are you people so desperate to defend this crap physics? Ugh, this is so depressing. All right, let's see. Where's the idiot's video again? I guess it's around, huh? Yeah, I think that's it. Oh, crap, there's more comments. I have a question here. I noticed no, that's the wrong video, right? Yeah, that's the one where he's launching the spring. So too bad he won't do that one again. You know, with the half mass and just prove to us that it only goes 1.4. The half mass experiences more inertia. It only goes 1.4. Go ahead and prove that. All right, so this is just the experiment done again. All right, so let's
Two masses, one distance.
Okay, so we get this over with. We'll get
1,
to the
2,
important
3, go.
experiment. All right, so change the masses. So it's just exactly the same experiment. So, okay, he's doing it twice. Okay, who cares?
Half mass, 2 distance.
And let's see how it goes. So this is the third. So now we have a third version of a third trial. So we only did 3 trials or 4 trials, right? Maybe we get 4 out of this, but we'll see. So, all right, so let's see what we get. All right, they look, uneven, even, uneven. Okay, now he's wiggling them about. Now that looks pretty even for a start. So that looks pretty even. You know, pretty close.
2.
Okay, let's see what happens at liftoff.
3.
3, okay, so the thinking time.
Go.
All right, now obviously, I mean, you can't honestly just say, clearly the back one got a huge head start here. I mean, it's already, it's traveled twice the distance that this one has traveled. I mean, it's a gigantic head start. All right, now we're getting the space and
Boom, boom.
boom, boom. Yeah. So there's no qualitative data here, right? So he's claiming this proves kinetic energy theory correct, and but it's the Brozo experiment. He's getting data that's completely in between. He's not going to be able to show that it's actually 0.7 behind, that it's moving that much slower. So he's just got some vague experiment that's going to be right in the middle of the two theories. So this experiment just proves... Oh shit, is that on? No. My bad there. Alright. Oh god, you gotta stay ahead of all this crap. Alright, so, yeah, so I might as well just play it again, right? Yeah, why not?
2, 3, go.
Okay, so that's with the mass in the right location. Okay, so that's the one we want. Alright.
1, 2,
We're almost to 3.
3,
Oh, we're at 3.
go.
Oh, shit.
Boom, boom.
My fingers. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. Proved it, didn't I? Proved it. Boom, boom. So, obviously, no qualitative boom, boom here. You know, no, oh, yeah, it was actually 0.7 difference or 1.4 the difference. No data demonstrating that this is consistent with the amount of difference kinetic energy would predict, which is substantial. Kinetic energy predicts that the lighter thing can only go 0.4 faster. Not much faster. Which means the whole other lever has to move a lot slower. 0.7 slower. I believe it's 0.7. Ah, fuck.
1, 2.
Oh, I almost blew it. This is my stroke hand. You know, years ago I did have a stroke and this hand doesn't work very well. As well
3,
as it used to.
3, go.
Alright, so try to get this quickly.
Go.
Not very quick. Alright, so you can see the difference, the separation. In the other one, like I said, at one time they were twice this distance. So this one's going to land a lot closer. And you hear it. Bang, bang. It's pretty close. Bang, bang. Pretty close.
Boom, boom.
Boom, boom. Boom, boom is pretty close. Oh, he just did it once. So we got 3 trials, 3 actual trials with the weight twice the, the half mass twice the distance. Only 3 actual trials. And each trial could be shown with frame by frame analysis to produce different answers. So we know there's a huge range of outcomes here. Okay, so hardly a decisive proof in any way of anything, except he likes doing sloppy experiments. Alright, so he did another experiment doing exactly the same thing he did in the previous experiment. He made no commentary, said nothing. And he complains that, hey, you sped my video up. I had a whole bunch of great things to say. Are you saying anything great? No. Alright, short, sweet, to the point, brilliantly simple, and just brilliantly shitty as scientific data. This is not what science should accept as an evidence. This is way below acceptable. Should be accepted. Alright, Gary would be all for this experiment if it were somehow intended to disprove God. Yeah, anything that helps in the argument against that silly fable, I'm all for. Yes, if you can help convince people not to be complete insane imbeciles and believe in fucking unicorns and gods, good idea. But it's intended to disprove him. And it's intended to do it with creating new fake science. So it's a completely new fake science. It doesn't prove KE, it doesn't prove momentum, it proves the new fake science. Alright. I mean, just so bad. So he will invent utter codswallop to excuse his fallibility. So there's no fallibility. My arguments remain intact because you haven't countered any of them. You haven't drawn a lever. You haven't drawn guns. You haven't drawn spaceships. You haven't drawn hydraulic cylinders. You haven't explained anything at all. You haven't countered any of my arguments. Not any of them. But it is fun knowing the truth upsets him. So this is what he says is the truth. The 14 theory and the 1.4 theory. That's the truth. great demonstration. So these are just, this is a flat earther rewarding another flat earther. It's hard to stop it. Another one that should be shown to students. So this is, they're not even science molesters. They really do want to molest children as well. Thank you, Steve, for those kind words. There is no inertia. So again, what's the idea? There's no conservation of momentum. So why don't you have, why are you such a ballless coward? Why don't you just say that's exactly what you intended? You want to prove there's no such thing as conservation of momentum. But you're such a liar, you can't do that. You won't do that. All right. I love to know what goes on in his tiny brain. So I make, this is going to be what, a 3-hour video? Yeah, I mean, well, it's 2 hours and 9 minutes. Every day. And he needs to know what goes on in my brain. When I express it every single day, I point out what's going on in my brain. Every single day. But it's a bit like wanting to know what goes on in a tiny atom. Apparently you don't understand any of that theory either. Electrons and protons. So even though you're a Sparky, you don't really understand what the hell goes on in atoms, do you? Yeah, that's true. All right. The sizes are not that different by the sound of things. So, yeah. Don't blame you for getting whatever this is, irritated. Yeah, so he has some right to be irritated. He plays none of my arguments and counters none of my arguments. I play his videos and he has a right to be irritated. Oh, yeah, that's so fair. I don't see how anybody couldn't see the gross fairness of all of that. Yes, he should be irritated. Because he's so bloody minded or something, I don't know. Inertia. Yeah, baby. So he compares it to, a spoof movie. Just even making it even clearer that he can't even get this part, right? The whole point is that's a spoof. And that inertia is spoof. It's talk. It's not a real thing. Oh, fuck. God, they're so stupid. It's like your magnetic watch, baby. It's not a real thing. Oh, these people are so despicable. All right, so I think that's it. So, yeah. So we have 3 trials of the actual experiment, and none of them were exactly or really near the same. And so clearly indicating that, probably all that's required is a different operator of the machine. If somebody else is operating the machine, they might get a different answer. But the real trick is that this whole lever is a default, a defunct, because he doesn't have a counterweight on here to compensate for the fact that he has all this wood on one side of the fulcrum and no wood on the other side of the fulcrum. And so that's a problem, because that changes where these weights have to be placed in a different position because of the weight imbalance on the lever. So he's changing the center of mass of the lever essentially, which means you have to change where these positions would be. These positions are valid, 1 distance and 2 distances, in the circumstance where you have negated the lever's weight. But he's not negating the lever's weight because he has a very heavy lever. Okay, so unlike if it was a really light lever, it wouldn't matter. But it's not a really light lever. It's a really heavy wooden lever. So its weight is substantial relative to the weight of the masses. It's at least as equal to those weights. And so it has to be, whatever it is, 5 ounces. 5 ounces plus 10 ounces here, or 12 ounces here. Okay, and then it's 5 plus the 12 out here. And those are going to give you different positions for the center of mass. But who cares, right? Those are details that they just couldn't care about. They don't want to consider, and they certainly don't want to eliminate them as being part of the experiment with the simple idea of just extend the lever or put a weight on here, counterbalancing the weight of the lever. Just do something to acknowledge that ideally the lever should be moot. It should not be in the experiment. The whole point is to take the lever out of the experiment. by having the same pressure on both sides, equaling each other. So therefore, it's a balance. So it's not a balance, and he's claiming the same rules apply for an imbalanced lever. So he's basically saying balanced lever, imbalanced lever, it doesn't matter. And I don't think it. I think it does matter. But frankly, it doesn't. There's so much wrong with this experiment. I don't have to even use that as an excuse. I can just point to the fact that there's so much other things wrong with this experiment. I mean, obvious holes in the lever that shouldn't be there. All kinds of crap. All right. So we're done with that. Yeah, I can get rid of that now. I think I'm done. And then we'll just see if there's any chat, and then we'll get the hell out of here. Whoops, that's the wrong goddamn thing. That should go over here, I guess. This one is the one I wanted to move. All right, let's see what we got here. All right, you correctly described Newton's first law. That is the definition of inertia. Well, again, it really isn't, so I'm not going to argue with you. Clearly, he's saying inertia is something where things actually resist being moved. That there's some kind of magical force that's telling the lighter object further out in the lever, you cannot have the energy. Some people do naively describe inertia as resistance to change in motion, if that is an error. Well, you're saying if that's an error. I'm saying obviously it's an error. And friction makes it a truth in the sense that, yes, on Earth, in friction, okay, things will appear to resist being moved because you have to first break them out of their friction. I mean, fuck, how many times do I have to say this? All right, if that is an error, it doesn't seem too egregious to me. It's sort of like saying, if you give me a little push, I won't go an infinite speed. I'll resist that. This isn't about going some other speed. It's about not allowing the momentum in. Oh, you just keep cheating this argument all over the place. He's making the argument that the momentum can't get into the object because there's some magical inertia in the way. Fuck you. I mean, you really are just trying so hard to make what he's saying reasonable. It is not reasonable to argue the fucking half mass, twice the distance from the fulcrum, has more inertia. It doesn't have anything. There is no such thing as inertia, and even if there was such a thing as inertia, it doesn't have more of it. By calculation, it doesn't have more of it. Alright, minute physics should have provided something like a scatter plot. Oh, what the fuck are you talking about? I mean, how would a scatter plot prove it takes 4 times the fuel to go twice as fast? Of several actual measurements, if it's available. Actual measurements of what? Again, they don't actually measure this stuff. They just look at their theory book and says what the truth is. They never test any of their theories. If they actually tested this crap, they would find it's not the truth. They obviously don't test it. The whole point of the physics is to evade testing. Just do the math. Don't bother with experiments. Gary's argument isn't against the minute physics data. Well, it is in part. I mean, putting in the thinking thing is a lie because it had nothing to. The reaction time of the person obviously wouldn't be in the experiment. There's no way you would turn the experiment on when the person says, "I'm going to hit the brake now." That's not when you would turn the experiment on, right? You'd turn it on when they hit the gas pedal. So there would be no reaction time. Would have nothing to do with the experiment. It's just about the time between the braking distances between when you hit the pedal and when the car stops. And that's all they would measure. And you know it, and I know it, and we know that braking crap they put in there about the thinking or reaction time is complete shit. Because nobody would do the experiment that way. I'll start the stopwatch when you say, I'm going to press the brake. That's not when you were going to press the stopwatch. You know it. Fuck this. People are just such pieces of shit to defend this crap. Anyway, against the data, I think his argument is that friction between the tires and the road and velocity dependent, not distance dependent. No, how far you go in gravity is proven by Galileo, a 1-3 relationship. The point is you will travel 4 times the distance with twice the velocity. Why will you travel 4 times the distance? Because you will only be fighting the friction twice as long, all right? And there's only, your weight is going to be half as much. The faster you go across a surface, the less contact you have with the surface, the less you couple with it, as I guess Ian likes to say. Okay, the less you're coupled to the surface, the less energy you can lose to the surface. So clearly, distance that you travel, okay, you can't use friction. Friction isn't linear. Friction doesn't apply the same friction to heavy objects and light objects, and it doesn't apply the same friction per foot to fast objects and slow objects. Fast objects obviously do not heat the ground as much as slow objects. People. You move as much distance losing the same amount of energy in the last 1/4 of the voyage. The last quarter, you put more energy, you put the same amount of energy into the ground that you did in the first 3/4 of the trip. So as gravity, as friction slows you down, you put the same energy. You go 3/4 of the distance and put the same energy into the ground that you put into the ground in the last quarter. Because it's about how long. It's about how long the gravity is affecting you. Gravity is a per second force. Shit. We go over and over this and you people don't learn anything. You just come back every day saying the same crap. Not distance dependent. Okay, so thank you, Tim. Sort of. Okay. I'm clearly saying their data is obviously doesn't show a 1-to-4 relationship. The data obviously, even after they tried to fix it by putting the reaction time in, they still couldn't fix it. It comes out to 1-to-3, not 1-to-4. So it clearly doesn't show kinetic energy right. Okay. But then again, it looks pretty messy. NVM, you explained it, thanks. I don't know who that is, but okay. Tim, minute physics didn't provide empirical data. The numbers were calculated, not measured, whether they're in agreement or not. Well, the problem is you can't tell whether they're not calculated or whether they actually did the experiment. There's actually, look, the toady guy went through a lot of trouble to research this stuff, and he couldn't really get decisive answers. There's no real evidence, okay, that they bother doing these actual tests. They just make it up. They do a simulation, and they just put the math into the simulation and say, look, the simulation says so. Well, of course, yes, the simulation validates the math you put into it. Yes, of course it does. They're not simulating the actual experiment into the actual conditions. All right. If you read the Wikipedia page, it tells you how they calculated, not measured, the numbers metaphysics provided. Well, I'm just saying, obviously, this is a huge problem. It's fake news. It's fake evidence. Yes, they didn't do actual experiments. I think somewhere somebody did actual experiments. The point is, the actual experiments don't come out verifying their theory, okay? And the ones that do come out verifying are the ones like Franklin Who did, where you just launch something with a velocity and you find out what Galileo already discovered, which is, yes, twice the velocity, 4 times the distance. But the distance isn't a measurement of its fucking goddamn energy. Because it went 4 times the distance because it incurred less fucking goddamn friction. Yeah. So, Tim, you're not going to say something stupid. Is the thinking time included because they are giving people advice how far the driver behind someone so you can brake in time? No, they're just saying, when do you see the point where you say you see a stop sign and where you don't see it? So what they do is they're just saying that there's, the stop sign is going to pop in front of somebody. You have to put the brakes on. They're going to put it into a full skid. All right, that's what I think they're describing. And they're calling that the reaction time or thinking time. And I'm just saying, obviously, no one would do the experiment that way. Nobody would ask the person to tell them, I'm braking now. That wouldn't happen. They would start the experiment when the brake pedal is hit, not when the person decided to hit it. So it's just a lie that it even exists in the experiment. Of course it wouldn't exist. The reaction time would not exist in the experiment. There'd be absolutely no way to calculate it. I mean, what are you going to put electrodes on their brain and try to figure out when they first noticed? That's not going to happen. They're gonna time it based on when they hit the pedal. I'm just saying, it's just obviously there just to create an illusion, okay, that some other factor is messing up the experiment. That's the only reason why they included it, is because, yeah, they have to they have to try to fudge the results. Tim, yeah, the following time stuff is based on traffic accidents for courtrooms, not physics. It's actually not science. I mean, frankly, look, every single time they do one of these calculations, they tell you how much fuel, how many joules are in the fuel. They're all lies, just like the gun bullet thing. The recoil of the gun has 2 joules. The bullet has 2,000. Obviously, nobody's making anybody account for these numbers. Nobody's forcing them to show that is actually the octane in the fuel. They're not doing any of these experiments to prove any of this crap. And all these people are just believers. I have faith in the science that doesn't do any experiments. Why would you have faith in scientists who really seem to hate experiments? I mean, realistically. I mean, they haven't redone the Eddington experiment in 100 years with better technology. Even though there's 400 times better resolution from space, and you don't need an eclipse, and the experiment only takes 5 minutes, they haven't done it. No curiosity. Do you believe science? Do you think it's a good idea to believe in scientists that have so little curiosity? That really aren't saying show me all the time? Why would you like a scientist who isn't all the time saying show me, 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 for fuck's sake, show me? It should be like written on every scientist's wall. Show me. This is the biggest thing you could do, is show somebody. And obviously these amateurs think, well, I can do that. I'm a very good experimentalist. I'm Asperger. It's one of our special features of being an Asperger, is you can do experiments really, really well. At least you think you can. Alright, braking times distance tests must be a part of car manufacturer safety requirements. I would think it is very well tested and known. Well, you can think it. But at point, it doesn't even apply, frankly. How do you apply such a test? Right? Because it's going to be all about the tires. Just like a racetrack is all about the tires, right? You make the tires soft, the car can go fast, but it can't go fast very long. You make the cars rigid, then the car slides all over the goddamn track, and you got all kinds of other issues, but they last a long time. I mean, it's almost so trivially retarded to have a conversation about braking distances and how different velocities are going to affect different rubber mixtures. I mean, it really is stupid, isn't it? Come on, get real. You can figure out that the temperature of the tire is going to be completely controlled by how fast you're going. The faster you go, it's obviously going to be there's going to be a lot more heat generated. By the simple velocity equation, everything has a higher velocity. So it's like saying, well, bullets bore holes through people and guns don't. The recoil of the gun doesn't bore a hole. Yeah, that's a different condition created by the different circumstances. The bullet gives all of its energy away in a millisecond, where the gun gives its energy away over a long period of time. So yes, the effects it'll have on a material are going to be completely different. So how could you even do this test rationally? How could you rationally even think it could be applicable to do this test when you're completely going to change the conditions of the substance you're using to create the friction? All of the friction variables will be changed by increasing speed. I mean, so it's not even a rationally acceptable scientific test. Besides the fact that the results aren't what they claim they should be. I'm just saying the word inertia has no meaning. There's no point in using it. Nothing resists motion. So the very definition of inertia, that somehow things are resisting change, is a wrong notion. So I'm saying, please recognize that the word is broken. It's not a valid concept. All right? It really isn't. Friction causes things to resist change. Inertia does not. Shouldn't higher temperature give more friction? No, it makes the frickin' product weaker. The bonds between all of the molecules fall apart and the whole thing just shreds. So yeah, it makes it easier for there not to be for the things not to hit each other anymore. It almost creates a grease for things to slide right over, the rubber grease. You leave a bunch of rubber grease on the road, and it just provides a nice frictionless path for your tire to fly across. That is interesting that even with their thinking time fudge factor, the numbers still don't add up to what they are claiming. Yes, it's just a fact that it doesn't work as an experiment, because for what I'm very saying is that you really can't do the experiment, but you can't control the friction factor. You can't make constant friction. It's just not possible to do it. Well, it's not possible to do it with rubber tires against a road, because all you do is make the tires thicker and the experiment's different. You make the tires thinner, the experiment's different. You make the tires out of steel, the experiment's different. Yeah, you just can't create constant variables. All right, inertia defined by Oxford. A property of matter by which it continues... Well, this is just a this isn't really... Okay, I'm fine with this definition, but I'm just saying, obviously, this isn't their definition. They use the definition where it's resisting change. Okay, so that's the definition they are understanding inertia to mean. Okay, a property of matter by which it continues in its existing state of rest or uniform motion in a straight line. Right, so it's either moving or not moving, and then you have to change its states. Okay, unless that state is changed by an external force. Right, so that's all I'm saying. That's not what they're saying. Okay, that clearly doesn't say that there's more inertia anywhere. Right? That clearly isn't saying there's more inertia. Nothing could have more inertia by that definition. It's just saying, well, it'll move when you apply a force to it. So there's no evidence that something could have more inertia. Right? By that definition, there's no such thing as more or less. It's just a definition of its state. It's either moving, not moving, still. It's, whatever it's doing, it's just doing that. It has a state. And that's all that's saying. Every object has a state, and the state is what it is until you change it. There's no evidence that you could say this 2 mass has less inertia than this 1 mass. That would never be appropriate by that definition. Clearly, they're not using that definition. Because there are more collision with the surface when the temperature is greater. So you keep doing this. I'm sorry, that's not how temperature works. Temperature relaxes all the bonds. It breaks them. The bonds are what the friction has to happen through, is the connections thing have. You break the bonds, like I said, you're creating grease. You're not creating something that creates more bonding. Resisting motion is not the definition. I understand. We have to deal with the fact that is a definition in physics, okay? A lot of physicists say that inertia is an object's resistance to change. That's what they say, and that's what these morons believe. So, you reciting the Oxford Dictionary isn't going to help any. Okay, because that's not their definition. But whatever. Why don't you talk to them? Why are you doing this shit? Anyway, the bigger mass has more inertia than the smaller mass. I think. So you're just saying something completely different than what the definition says. The definition does not say because it has more mass, it has more inertia. Its state is somehow more of a state. It doesn't say anything like that. It's merely telling you that you have to apply an external force to change its condition. I mean, it seems kind of obvious. If something's going 50 miles an hour, you're going to have to apply more force to stop it from moving. Duh. But that doesn't mean it has more inertia. There's no such thing as inertia. It's your fucking definition is basically telling you there's no such thing as inertia. Again, the definition says nothing about how much force you have to apply. Of course, under the definition is Newton's second and third law, which are basically telling you that. But obviously it's telling you nothing about how much force you need to counter it. That Newton's second law does that when it says quite clearly you want to go twice as fast, you have to apply twice as much force. The second law takes care of volume. So again, it doesn't take more external force to change a bigger mass. It's explicitly in Newton's law, twice the force. I mean, twice the mass, twice the force. It's a complete equal sign. Not a proportionality. It's a dead equal sign. The force equals momentum. It will equal a change in your momentum. Exactly. Twice the velocity, twice the force. Those are Newton's words. Clearly, Newton would agree with Professor Lewin when he said nature can't finagle momentum. So if you're going to say that the half mass, twice the distance, moving twice, that would move twice the velocity, is not going to move twice the velocity, then you have to explain how you broke the conservation of momentum. And they won't do that. So Tim, will you just say in the comments, it would be nice if they would actually explain how they can violate conservation of momentum. I mean, could you request that of them to explain how it's okay to violate conservation of momentum? Because that's what they're overtly arguing in their videos. They're overtly saying, okay, I'm going to break conservation of momentum with inertia. All right, let's see. Critics, please tell us how, if you guys are, how the F you guys are violating conservation of momentum. Well, that's the wrong way to state the sentence, actually, because you're sitting there, they'll say, we're not doing that, when they are. How the fuck you guys think it's okay to violate conservation of momentum? That would be the way to say it. How the fuck do you guys think you can violate conservation of momentum and pretend to be making sense? And pretend to be defending conventional physics when conventional physics is quite glued to the conservation of momentum. So much so that Professor Lewin goes to the trouble, okay, to make a poetic speech about how nature can deal with kinetic energy one way or the other, but nature can't finagle momentum. So he goes to the trouble to do that little play for you and you're completely discounting it and say, no, you're wrong. MIT professor. Alright, well, I guess we'll do the 2-minute warning thing. Going on. Yeah, 2 hours and 40 minutes. Yeah. Didn't think I would do that, but whatever. Still kind of cold outside, so gives me an excuse to hide from it. Did Minute Physics stop responding? Well, of course, yes. I don't know how you could even know that I talked. I mean, I read all the correspondence and I read my final point to them. Would you confirm that you have decided to discontinue this conversation because you're not replying? So they wouldn't even do that. So they couldn't even give me that courtesy. I mean, I offer them a $300, $3,000 deal, $3,000 plus, and they can't even give me the courtesy of politely ending the conversation. I'm not sure if it's interesting, but in P equals mv, well, they're just letters, right? I mean, mv equals momentum. It equals weight. Mass times velocity equals weight. Mass times velocity equals weight. If I take a mass and I give it a velocity, it will have a weight. Momentum is weight. Pressure. Force. Alright, but in P equals mv, mass is basically the multiplier that tells you how to convert velocity into momentum. I think that's just a piece of gibberish. Where the fuck did you get any of that? The mass is just as important as the velocity as a component, as an element being added. More mass bits, more energy. More velocity bits, more energy. They're equal contributors to the product. You need the mass because it carries the velocity. Without the carrier, the velocity can't do anything. All right. Inertia isn't defined as resistance. So what you want me to go through all the videos on YouTube where the physics instructor says it's resistance to change? You want me to go through all those videos just to show you that it doesn't matter what you say inertia is. That's not what they think it is. It's actually defined as object will continue. Look, that was already typed in this very comment section. I mean, it was already typed, the definition. The argument is do you think that's what Ian is saying when he says the half mass has more inertia? He's saying a half mass that's supposed to go twice the velocity has more inertia. What do you make out of that? How do you fit that definition with what he's saying? Same force, somehow the inertia will stop it from going into the object. That's what he's saying. Where in that definition is that being said? That inertia will stop forces from going into objects. Oh, that's right. It's not saying that anywhere. Fuck. God damn it. I'm sorry. I go over this so many times, and it's like, how can you people not be getting it? It's not about a dictionary definition. It's about a common understanding. And when they constantly use the word inertia to describe something not being able to move, it's bullshit. Because everything has the same capacity to be moved. You just have to apply a force to it to cause its motion. And its motion will be proportional to its mass and what velocity you can spread on that mass. That is Google's definition. The point is, it's not their definition. It's not Brozo's definition. It's not Ian's definition. It's not any of these retards' definition. Their definition isn't, it's its state. If it was its state, yes, the 5 mass has a state. The 10 mass at the different location has a state. The fucking goddamn physics says the state should be the same. They weigh the same. That's what you're actually measuring. Their weight. They weigh the same. That means their state of inertia is the same. They are applying the same pressure in the direction that they have momentum. They are the same condition. Same weight, same condition. How can one have more inertia? Whatever. Okay, so there you go. Moment of inertia is defined as resistance to change. Okay, the whole argument I've been making from the very beginning is there's no fucking such thing. Nothing resists change. Except in friction. Friction consumes energy. It's just a fact. You lose energy to friction. If something is in friction, in contact with something, then you have to accept the losses of energy through the contact. The contact means you're basically going to have to move both objects. The object you're trying to move and the object you're not trying to move. And you'll have to waste some of your energy affecting the object you're not trying to move. So if you're pushing something across the surface of the earth, it isn't as simple as I'm just going to apply my energy to that object. You're going to have to apply some percentage of your energy to the big giant thing it's connected to. Fuck. But that's not inertia. That's friction. The two things aren't the same thing. Fuck. It's just so. I mean, if people can't get these kind of simple subjects, you're just saying they're never going to get anything. I mean, it's just going to be forever to get you up to tree. Tree has bark. Tree has branches. I mean, you're going to, it's going to take us forever to get there, right? Because we can't get off poo-poo smells. Oh, fuck. Oh, damn. Oh. God, this is as tedious as, teaching in a fucking nursery school. Oh, it's just got to be the worst job on earth. Oh, fuck. Kindergarten teacher. That should be the Oxford definition of hell. Yeah, kindergarten teacher. Oh, God. Nothing could be worse. Alright, so enough of a video. So, till the next time and such, people, try to get smarter somehow. Stop drinking lead paint. Drink something else. Water or something. Whatever. Just, come on. Come on. Do something. Get your brains rolling a little better. Get them out of the mire of archaic friction. Alright, so anyway, till the next time and such and so forth and whatnot. Yes, thank you for the participation. Have a good day also. And yes, it is pretty horrifying. Mrs. Tree. That was invented already. I said the word tree and Mrs. Tree showed up. Huh. What a surprise. Anyway, I'll keep drinking lead paint. No, don't. Just stop it. Come on. For the sake of all humanity. Please stop drinking the lead paint. Alright, anyway. Till the oh, Heil Hitler to you too also. Yeah. Heil Orange Hitler. Okay, anyway, till the next time and such and so forth. I'm really leaving this time. Here I go. Boom, going to hit the button.